Alright, well that loaded a little bit quicker than I expected. I pressed the Z key to go back off the loading screen, and then I went to hit record, and then the thing popped up. So hopefully it popped up right as I started recording. Might just be going right on into it, but that was a pretty close one there. But hello everybody, Hallie here, and welcome to the Gold Mine. Thank you for joining me here on what should be our final episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles playthrough, episode number 40. So, ending off on a nice even number, getting into trial part 3 here. Had some, for me, personally expected revelations. Lord Strongheart is evil. But thankfully we now have confirmation that Lord Strongheart is the Reaper of the Bailey and did cause, somehow incredibly convinced Gregson and Dr. Wilson to fabricate evidence that convicted Genshin Asogi of being the professor 10 years ago. So, looks like we had Maria Gori, Susato's dad, and Van Zeek's on the stand. I think that's who I saw scroll by. I'm pretty sure I was just stressed out about, oh no, I didn't press record fast enough, possibly. But yes, we are about to jump on into it, so the game wants us to jump right on into it, so I will as well. Let's just get started. So, witnesses, please state your name and occupation for the court.
Yuji Mikotaba, lecturer in forensic medicine at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo, Japan.
And Professor Mikotaba, the young lady beside you is...
Ah, this is Dr. Maria Gori, Scotland Yard's practicing coroner, the daughter of Dr. Scythe, I understand.
Yes, Dr. Scythe.
I'm afraid I can't tell you why she's here. She just appeared.
Why does that not feel too surprising for her, to be honest?
You summon this strange Japanese man as a witness to that autopsy. But you don't summon Mama. That makes no sense. She was there too. That's about the size of it. And I've had her eyes boring into the side of my cheek constantly, whilst I was in the antechamber too.
Poor man. The idea of it's making me shudder. The revelations about Dr. Scythe that came to light some days ago defiled the reputation of the entire judiciary. She was therefore deemed unfit to appear as a witness in today's proceedings. The Ministry of Justice's decision on that is final. Well, we wouldn't want any more perjury to be committed, would we? In the Ministry of Justice, some questionable strings are being pulled, I think. I remember you, Dr. Mikotaba. I certainly never expected to be meeting you under these circumstances. She's just chilling with her plague mask. I like her, but I also think she's a giant weirdo. I don't know. She scares me. I'm intimidated.
Yes, it's been a while, Lord Strongheart.
And the prosecution understands that you were a visiting student of forensic science in London until 10 years ago.
That's right. I studied under Dr. Wilson at St. Sinners.
So you were present at the autopsy of my brother, Lord Clint Van Zeeks.
And I was, yes. I assisted Dr. Wilson with the entire procedure.
Mama is far more skilled than any Japanese man.
Well, Dr. Wilson asked me to be his primary assistant on that occasion.
And this autopsy report was actually penned by you, I believe.
Yes, I noted all of the doctor's findings, and when we were done, he read through the document and signed it.
Poor Mama. As secondary assistant, she wouldn't have had such a good view of all the innards.
So, Professor, do you remember Inspector Gregson?
Yes, of course. It wasn't for his insistence, Lord Van Zeek's autopsy would never have happened. But he was absolutely convinced that it would reveal decisive evidence against Genshin, you see? So Lord Strongheart had to entreat the nobility to allow it to take place. Do correct me if I'm wrong, my lord.
It was the result of that autopsy that the mass murderer was apprehended and justice was done. But Gregson admitted that before he was killed. He admitted that the results of the autopsy were fabricated. You were there at the time, so you must testify. You have an obligation to tell the truth about what really went on.
Absolutely. Not precisely is why I'm here.
And that's why I'm here too.
Why are you here?
Very well then, you will give your formal testimony now, witness. But before you begin, a word of warning. Oh, why, you're gonna kill me too? You will state truthfully and accurately what you saw and what you heard at the time. I wouldn't dream of doing otherwise, my lord. The moment your testimony verges on supposition, I will expel you from my courtroom. Remember that.
On a good note, I now have a somewhat cold bottle of water. The other episode's about 2.5 hours. It's kind of cold. It's fine. So I have water now. I don't have to just chug carbonated drink and then be like, I have too much gas in my body. All right, the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks. Van Zeeks.
From my own observations, I couldn't say there was any indication of the autopsy results having been fabricated. Death resulted from a wound made by a Western-style sword transfixing the heart. That I found a little strange.
There were no other signs of internal injury, nothing questionable at all. It was just that beautiful but dangerous piece of evidence removed from the man's stomach.
Presumed to have been swallowed by the victim, as a way of posthumously identifying his assailant. No indication, nothing to suggest fabrication.
Professor Mikotaba, are you certain about that?
Well, nothing that I could positively identify as such, much less swear to in testimony.
Well, that clears things up nicely.
The only fabrication here, Sogi, has come from you.
What?
You claim that the inspector confessed just before his death, but that is the fabrication.
No, he freely acknowledged it, I swear he did.
Freely? With the tip of a sword at his throat? That man was clearly at his wit's end. The court will give no credence to this confession that was uttered in obvious desperation. Quite simply, there was nothing questionable about the investigation of Lord Clint Van Zeek's death. And with this testimony we have, without question, uncover the whole truth of the matter. If I may, my lord. There was most certainly something questionable about it, and the whole truth does rather elude us, I feel. I beg your pardon? Well, you're obviously aware of the facts of the case, and all 4 of the professor's previous victims died when an enormous beast was set upon them that ripped out their throats.
Oh, such horrifying crimes!
But curiously, the killer's last victim, Lord Clint Van Zeeks, suffered a different fate. Yes, you're right.
He was stabbed through the heart with a sword!
That's enough! I believe I warned you about this, witness. I promised to curtail your testimony as soon as it entered the realms of supposition or speculation. Very well, my lord. In that case, the defense will pursue a conclusion to this during the cross-examination. What? I have the right to cross-examine every witness after testimony. And I fully intend to exercise that right.
Rinosuke.
I'm afraid that even the presiding judge has no authority to contravene the letter of the law, as I'm sure every member of the judiciary present in the gallery would agree. Very well. You may begin, counsel. However, the moment your argument strays from the established facts, I will not hesitate to bring the cross-examination to an end. Proceed with caution. Yes, my lord.
Hold it!
You couldn't say? No, sadly not.
But then you couldn't say there wasn't any indication either, could you?
No, true, I couldn't. And I was at Dr. Wilson's side as he performed the procedure, recording what he did. But at times, of course, he instructed me to fetch implements and such like. Whilst I was away from the operating table, obviously I could have missed something. And at those times, what was the secondary assistant doing?
Following this Japanese man's orders to adjust the lighting or pass some implements. But that doesn't mean Mama wasn't a vital part of the team.
Quite, yes. So would you kindly refrain from staring at my cheek like that?
Professor Mikotaba, think. Was there nothing at all that seemed out of place to you?
Well, yes, there was, as a matter of fact.
In all of the previous 4 killings attributed to the professor, the victims were killed by an enormous dog, I believe. Their throats were, well, mauled.
Correct, and yet Lord Van Zeeks was stabbed.
Ah, do you mean to say you think Lord Clint Van Zeeks may not have been one of the professor's victims? There was no such basis on which to doubt the findings of the investigations carried out at the time. But Genshin Asogi confessed all of his crimes upon his arrest. He admitted to having taken the lives of all 5 members of the aristocracy.
Yet the beast that was used to carry out the killings was never identified. No evidence was found to suggest that Genshin had ever kept a dog.
A true hound of hell. Yeah, who wants to take bets that Lord Strongheart has dogs? Who wants to take some bets that Lord Strongheart owns some pit bulls? I'll take that bet.
There was no other signs of internal injury.
But, you weren't actually present at the autopsy yourself, were you, Dr. Gory? I mean, she could have been 9. Yeah, I could see Dr. Scythe bringing in a 9-year-old child to watch a body get cut up. Probably. She has such a sick outfit.
Does that matter?
Well, I just wonder how useful your testimony can be in that case, really? I mean, it would be different if your mother, Dr. Scythe, were in the stand, but...
Mama! I've read all the paperwork about the case, and Mama has told me the story countless times. The statement I just made is exactly what's written in the autopsy report.
And I did confirm that myself at the time, it's true. Besides the stab wound, there were no other signs of internal trauma.
I see. Yeah, but what was the evidence y'all found in the stomach?
Mama told me all about it.
Oh?
She said there was nothing of note internally. But they did find an amazing piece of evidence, something unbelievable.
Unbelievable? What do you mean? Come on, Dr. Gory. What was it?
I don't know.
See, if it was dangerous, how was there no internal signs of injury? That's my question. What exactly was it, though? What does beautiful but dangerous mean?
Well, it was sparkly and round with a hole, as if it might slip over a finger, perhaps.
It was a ring, belonging to Genshin Asogi.
Oh, okay. My father's ring was inside the victim's stomach.
At the time, Genshin wore a rather large ring on the digitus quarters of his left hand, the 4th, or ring finger. I'd understood it was some sort of keepsake.
When my father left Japan for London 16 years ago, I was 8 years old. But I remember that ring. You do? My father's possessions were sent to our family home in Japan after his death, but the ring wasn't among them. Obviously not. It was a key piece of evidence. It remains under lock and key in the stores at Scotland Yard to this day.
After the autopsy, Genshin was summoned by the police to check for the presence of his ring. It wasn't on his hand, of course. Moreover, there were deep abrasions on his finger where it had been pulled off. And they arrested the man there and then, right before my eyes.
How could they?
I brought the ring along with me today.
Sick.
What?
Here it is, a bit dusty from years in the stores.
Good gracious, yes, that's it. And I haven't seen that in 10 long years.
And that was found inside the victim's stomach.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
You hesitated there, Professor Mikotama. Should we read something into that?
Well, it's just that thinking back now. I didn't actually witness the moment it was extracted from the victim's body.
Oh my! Really?
And at that precise moment, Dr. Wilson had asked me to fetch him a new scalpel, you see.
Dr. Gilry, the removal of this historic evidence from the stores requires my consent, does it not?
Yeah, but I don't care what you have to say. Mama said I can do whatever I like.
However it came to be here, the court cannot deny that this is crucial evidence for today's proceedings. Very well, you may submit it. It's not the sort of ring normally seen in Japan. They almost look like claws protecting that jewel.
We must examine it very carefully, Mr. Naruhodo. Very carefully indeed.
Why do I feel like the jewel is like secret ink and then we look at the Asogi papers and it has a bunch of info or something? Alright, excuse me, Baroque?
I need to look at the ring, Baroque.
These fat claws are doing a good job of protecting the equally fat gemstone in the middle of this ring.
Yes, if you were clumsy, you could give yourself a rather nasty cut on them, I should think.
Ow! Now my finger's bleeding. The claws are really sharp.
Oh my! That was very quick clumsiness, Mr. Naruhodo, even for you!
Who would make such a dangerous ring? You couldn't swallow it without doing yourself some fairly serious damage, surely.
A sticky mochi ball about the size would go down much better, with some red bean paste in the middle.
Someone as clumsy as me would probably manage to choke on it somehow. Y'all got any hidden info somewhere? Why do you look like the top twists off or something? I don't know.
Hold it!
And that was the decisive piece of evidence that led to Genshin Isogi's arrest. Correct. After further investigations by Scotland Yard, the man admitted to his crimes. That's a lie. My father was no killer. Barack Van Zeeks, it was you. You twisted the truth to suit your purposes. Your hatred of me doesn't change the facts that were established 10 years ago. My brother, Clint, had closed in on the professor. And in the end, he exposed the man and put a stop to his lethal rampage. In the way only a man of my brother's caliber could. That's everything, is it?
Poor father! He looks so troubled!
Perhaps because 10 years ago, something happened that's been weighing on his mind.
Oh!
I couldn't say, were his words. That phrasing was very deliberate, I'm sure.
I wonder if he's had his suspicions all these years.
If that's the case, we need to use this cross-examination to prove what really happened, and remove any trace of doubt.
If we could establish that Kazuma-sama's claim of fabricated evidence was true!
We can't shy away from this now, even if what we might uncover could lead to total calamity.
Don't worry, Mr. Naruhodo! I'll be right beside you, whatever may happen!
No, wait.
Hold it!
No. Wrong button.
Objection!
The court has heard that the ring was extracted from the victim's stomach, but you didn't actually see it being removed, did you, Professor Mikotaba?
That's right, as I said in my testimony before. At that moment, I was fetching a replacement scalpel that Dr. Wilson had requested.
In other words, you can neither confirm nor deny whether this ring, in fact, really came from the victim's stomach or not. What are you suggesting, counsel? That the ring was never in the victim's stomach to begin with. It's entirely feasible that Dr. Wilson fabricated that detail about the autopsy. What are you saying? That Dr. Wilson was in possession of the ring in advance, after it was somehow stolen from Mr. Asogi. And he produced it during the procedure, pretending to have found it there and then in the victim's stomach.
Objection!
Supposition at best. What possible evidence do you have to support such a rash claim? This evidence, right here. That's the autopsy report. It's explicit in that report, counsel. Other than the ring, nothing unusual is noted internally, so I'm not sure how you intend to prove your point. You've already done it for me, my lord. The lack of internal injuries says it all. What? To swallow a ring of this size would require considerable effort and determination. In addition to its size, there are sharp claws around the gemstone to contend with. My brother was a determined man, and on the brink of death, even more so, I'm sure. He would have stopped at nothing to ensure that evil killer was brought to justice. But if he really had swallowed that enormous ring, it's inconceivable that no traces of its passage down his throat would have remained as internal trauma. No.
And there you've arrived at the sticking point. That's precisely why I had my doubts about the findings myself 10 years ago.
Then why didn't you say something at the time?
And I did. And I still remember the conversation I had with Dr. Wilson in the laboratory that day.
Look at this! Now this is a very curious thing to find in a man's stomach, wouldn't you say?
But isn't that rather peculiar, Dr. Wilson?
What's that now, Mikotaba?
Well, if he swallowed a ring of that size with those sharp metal claws it has, surely you'd expect to see damage to the throat and the esophagus, torn mucous membranes at the very least.
Dr. Mikotaba, may I remind you that I have vastly more experience than you.
I'm terribly sorry.
I can think of plenty of ways to explain why no injuries would be seen. No, let's say this. The victim would appear to have ingested the item as evidence to identify his assailant. Go ahead, write it down. So I was right. Dr. Wilson deliberately fabricated the results of the autopsy to implicate my father. I'm disappointed, counsel. That argument is nothing more than speculation. What? This music gives me the creeps. Dr. Wilson was Britain's leading authority on forensic science and autopsy work. There is no scientific basis on which to doubt the man's expert opinion.
Pardon the interruption, my lord, but damage to the mucous membranes of the throat is easily identified even in living subjects.
Using a device called an endoscope recently demonstrated a practical use in France. I want one. The government can pay.
I don't think so, Dr. Gorey. Rest assured that your removal of evidence from the stores without permission will not go unpunished.
We open up the dead to find the truth.
Heck yeah. We got crazy. What are these things? They got... why can't I remember what it's called? I just said what it was called. We got crazy plague mask chick on our side, dude. We've convinced her that we gotta hunt for the truth to not make the same mistakes her mom made. We convinced Like, we're collecting all these witnesses like Pokemons, hunting for the truth against Lord Strongheart. Because, I mean, to be fair, Lord Strongheart was like, nah, don't write that down. She's like, okay, and, not Phoenix was like, hey, you realize that's, kind of sketchy, right? She's like, yeah, let me fix it. I beg your pardon.
But Mama, she chose to stitch her corpses up with all her secrets inside. That's wrong.
Dr. Gory, it's looking as though she's chosen to walk a different path to her mama. Good. Her outfit's sick, dude. The mumblings of the gallery. Yes, the ring. What about the ring? I've just remembered something. An earlier incident. What incident? The one I recounted to you before, about a memory I have of Genshin Asogi saving my life. What? My father saved your life? It was 10 years ago on a foggy night. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. All of a sudden...
Don't make a peep, you're coming with us.
all of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scarves. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He'd shielded me. It was on the ring finger of his left hand that he'd used to wear that ring. Ah! Are you saying? I've always believed those thugs were after me. But now I'm starting to question if perhaps I wasn't the intended target after all. Wait, but... Genshin was arrested 2 days after that attack. And in that short interval, the decisive evidence needed to indict him was miraculously found. You mean, the ring was stolen from him? You think that's what those thugs were after that night?
Objection!
You pathetic coward. You expect me to believe that you weren't involved? What do you mean by that? It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who took it. You stole my father's ring. You set the whole thing up so you could paint him as a mass murderer and have him arrested. Kazuma, open your eyes. Ryunosuke, you must know deep down. The truth can be completely obscured even when your judgment is only slightly clouded. But at the moment, you seem to be floundering through a dense fog. Is that why you were so insistent I should be present in this trial? To see you like this? Well, this is an amusing spectacle. What a grandiose expression on your face, as if it were Lady Justice herself. It seems you have thoroughly convinced yourself of this alleged fabrication of the autopsy results. So much so that you're apparently blind to the blatant contradiction that we're born out of it. He looks even more crazy than usual. Though it's extremely hard to believe, let us imagine that there was some misconduct during the autopsy. If that were the case, why would Asogi not have disputed the findings in his trial? This is just evil. Oh. In the Claws Court hearing 10 years ago, the defendant never once denied the claims against him. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zeeks? Yes, that's indeed correct.
Upon hearing the verdict of guilty, he merely closed his eyes, quietly accepting the judgment. The actions of a man who has accepted responsibility for his deeds and is resigned to his fate. But then...
Oh my! That is very strange! If Mr. Sogi did nothing to oppose the charges against him, then... that would surely mean there is no fabricated evidence!
An obvious conclusion at which you should have arrived many minutes ago, Prosecutor Sogi. Your twisted loyalty and clouded judgment are hampering your ability for logical thought. Genshin Asogi's silence at his hearing can only mean one thing. I threatened his family. There was no fabrication of evidence during the autopsy of his final victim 10 years ago. Nah! Yeah, it's funny when you look at this angle how far Ryunosuke actually has to fly back to hit the wall. Like, he yeets himself, like, a lot. But if that autopsy was all above board, there'll be nothing to stop Lord Strongheart bringing this trial to an immediate conclusion.
Objection!
Good. Thank you, Ryunosuke. If it wasn't for your frank words just now, this trial may very well have ended prematurely. Thank you for telling me to pull my head out of my own ass. I really needed it. For some reason, it's been up there for like the past 7 episodes. Kazuma? What's this latest absurdity, Counsel? My lord, your reasoning is perfectly sound, but for one giant hole. I beg your pardon? You claim my father's silence was due to the fact there was no fabricated evidence. But there's another possible explanation. You've overlooked the possibility that he had a reason for maintaining that silence.
Objection!
Silence that would lead him to being convicted and sent to his death. If the autopsy results were an intervention or an invention, there's no conceivable reason why the man wouldn't have protested.
Objection!
Oh, those results were an invention, all right. There's no question of that. Or are you forgetting that 2 people with a connection to the autopsy have been assassinated? If I force the grievances I feel from my mind, I start to see you in a very different light. I think perhaps it's you who's been living in delusion these 10 years. Mei.
Kazuma-sama has created one last chance for us here, Mr. Naruhodo! If we can only show there was a reason for his father's silence in his trial!
A reason why the man would have said nothing even though he was innocent. Could it have been part of some negotiation, perhaps? Enough rhetoric! The court must be shown evidence! What proof do you have that could possibly explain Asogi's silence in court? This is the defense's answer to that question, and I think it's wrong because the way I came in like that. Yeah. At some point, the papers will be useful. I swear, at some point.
If Kazuma-sama's father knew that the evidence being used to convict him was fabricated, why would he have said nothing in his trial?
If it were me, I'd have protested my innocence until I was blue in the face.
So if we're right about the autopsy results, there must have been a strong reason for his silence.
Well then, perhaps he was saying nothing in exchange for some sort of clemency.
Ah!
That could be it. My lord, the defense would like to... Enough rhetoric.
It's true that Genshin Isogi's silence during his trial resulted in his conviction, but they didn't kill him anyways. That didn't actually lead to his execution. On the contrary, it led to his escape, an escape that was only possible because he'd been sentenced to death. Although I find it hard to believe my father would have negotiated in that way, the defense is correct. A fake execution, falsification of a death certificate, and a jailbreak inside a coffin. Clearly, such an elaborate plan couldn't have been carried out by my father alone. He must have had the help of a collaborator from the judiciary. And I have here the dismissal notice of the chief warder who was working in the prison at the time. The notes read, there are indications that the jailbreak was in planning prior to the inmate's incarceration. In other words, there were suggestions of some sort of negotiation between Mr. Sogi and the British government. In exchange for his silence in court, he was given an assurance that he would be broken out of prison. Yes, with that sort of clandestine agreement in place, I can imagine he would have kept very quiet. I would go further than that, in fact. I would say that the elaborate jailbreak of Mr. Sogi can be explained in no other way. Order! First fabricated evidence and now a jailbreak conspiracy. Of course, because it's all intimately linked. The prosecution wishes to summon new witnesses to the stand. Witnesses? People who can testify about the jailbreak that took place 10 years ago. Ah!
Governor Kaiden! And the poor chief warder of the prison!
And I want to allow this trial to turn into a farce, to summon the governor of the prison after all these years.
No, it wouldn't be any trouble, my lord. You see, Mr. Sholmes actually already brought them here.
What?
Father!
My dear friend may appear a little rattle-pated at times, but I can assure you he's extremely thorough. He wired both Barclay and the local prison earlier, asking Governor Kaiden and Mr. Vigil to attend the Old Bailey as a matter of extreme urgency.
Mr. Sholmes!
Did that? Oh, are you telling me that...
Both men are, unless I'm much mistaken, waiting just outside the courtroom at this very moment.
My lord, you must permit this trial to proceed as you declared at its outset. You promised that you would stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings.
Yeah, but it's not the truth he wants, so he doesn't like it.
Very well, bring in the witnesses. Make no mistake, I, too, would like nothing more than to lay this business to rest once and for all.
Oh, I'm sure you would.
Would the new witnesses state their names and occupations to the court, please?
Aye, Barry Kaiden, Governor of Barclay Prison. Everyone calls me Gossip.
Your other persona, if you don't mind.
Oh, I do beg your pardon, of course. My name is Daily Vigil. I used to be the chief warder at Barclay Prison.
The reason you've been summoned here to court today is to testify about the jailbreak of the so-called professor 10 years ago.
Lost the professor? We've already been through all this before, a decade ago. And the conclusion was that there wasn't anything untoward happened.
A convict escaped from your prison, Governor. Hardly what you call nothing untoward.
Ah, well... If my voice actress didn't have a horrible Scottish accent, maybe I could be able to communicate with you better.
After the convict's death certificate was somehow falsified after he was allegedly executed, and he escaped the prison inside his own coffin. A plan of that complexity could never have been carried out without the help of somebody of influence inside the prison. Governor Kaiden, don't imagine that the passage of time will afford you any protection. If it turns out that you were involved in the plot to break Mr. Sogi out of your prison, then of course, the consequences will be very serious.
In all likelihood, a capital punishment.
Gads, hold on there, laddie. All I did was... Witness,
Governor Kaiden.
Aye, sir.
You have a critical role to play in the public safety of our country. Great responsibility to shoulder. The significance of your testimony in court cannot be understated. Therefore, think carefully before you speak. And Prosecutor Sogi, if you threaten the witness again, you will be held in contempt of court. My apologies, my lord. There's no disputing the fact that an intricate jailbreak plot was enacted 10 years ago. Clearly, you were both involved in some way. So you will testify before the court now and explain what took place. Very well. Let the witnesses give their formal testimony. Tell the court everything you know of the plot to break out Sogi of Barclay Prison 10 years ago. Alright, the jailbreak plot.
It was the day that Japanese jock was found guilty. The directive came from the prosecutor's office. I assigned the convict to the chief ward of vigil here, put the plan in action behind the scenes. I was responsible for Asogi right up until the night of his execution, but I knew nothing of any plot. I didn't again if there was some negotiation between the convict and the prosecutor's office. All I did was carry out my duty for Her Majesty's Great British Empire.
A directive from the prosecutor's office? Are you saying that was the jailbreak plot?
Aye, that's right.
Who sent it? Who authorized that plan?
I didn't again that.
You saying you didn't know?
Listen, there wasn't anything about that professor case that wasn't unusual in some way. I didn't ask any questions. I just did what I told to do. More than that, couldn't I tell you?
I see. But if the jailbreak plan originated from the prosecutor's office, the one thing is very clear. As suspected, there were clandestine dealings going on between Mr. Sogi and that office. The jailbreak was promised in exchange for Mr. Sogi admitting to crimes he didn't commit. Not, counsel. There's nothing more than speculation on your part. So, let me ask the defense.
Oh, yes, my lord?
I fail to see how these witnesses have any more parts in this information here. Do you intend to assert your right to a cross-examination?
Heck yeah, absolutely.
I have no intention of squandering a single opportunity, my lord. It seems all you Japanese are fiercely tenacious. Very well. Proceed, counsel.
Hold it!
And you say you don't know who actually issued the directive?
Aye, that's right.
I'll be sure of that it was official. But if it was from the prosecutor's office, that narrows down who could have issued it straight away. And it wasn't me.
I cannot even say with certainty that it did originate from the prosecutor's office.
What?
There's no telling where it started. There's a fair chance it came from higher up the ladder. Basically. And I cannot give you any indication of who was behind it.
You can't be serious.
All we can say for sure is that the order must have come from somebody in authority, I suppose. The likes of us on the ground, as it were. Then they bother with idle speculation. We just get the job done.
Hold it!
So, Mr. Vigil, you didn't know anything about it at all?
That's right. My only role in the scheme was as a scapegoat.
That's right, isn't it, Governor?
And they really screwed this guy over. This dude got accused of what he set him up for, and then tried to jump out a window, almost died, and then had to lie to his wife for 10 years because he was embarrassed. Bro, you suck.
You suck, dude.
Some poor bag had to take the rap for it.
Alright then, who else didn't know about the plan?
I've no the first idea, laddie. My part in the whole business was basically just dealing with the aftermath. I wouldn't be surprised if there were other folk in the prison service who'd be given similar orders.
So you don't know who else was involved?
Aye, that's right. All I can tell you is that the night it actually happened, the person at the reins was Dr. Stevens.
Dr. Courtney Stevens, or Dr. Sy, as she's known now.
Why did I have to get caught up in such a terrible business?
Hold it!
Did you not notice anything unusual happening in the lead up to that night?
Oh, everything was unusual. Exception after exception. After all, it was the professor. The man had terrorized the country as never before with his crimes. In order to hide his identity, he was forced to wear an iron mask over his head.
Hideous treatment.
And the fellow was surprisingly docile for someone who'd taken the lives of 5 of the country's nobles. Being the chief warder, I was the only person permitted to approach his cell. And I can still hardly believe that I was duped by my own country.
And I believe you jumped from the window of the governor's office when the jailbreak was blamed on you, didn't you?
Losh, Vigil, can they apologize enough? No, Governor, I don't believe you can. It won't change what's happened.
And what else can you tell us about the situation to Governor Kaiden? But you've already acknowledged that the orders came from the prosecutor's office to arrange for the man's escape. There must have been some sort of negotiation. It's the only explanation.
Aye, well, be that as it may, I didn't get nothing about that. The witness stand, there's no place for telling what you don't know for sure. I ken that much, I do.
And I presume you also know this. Not telling what you do know is a criminal offense. So you were just following orders, is that it? I'm afraid that won't absolve you of guilt here.
I like the message, though, here in this game, because that's what Gregson said. I was just following orders. This guy was just following orders.
Dr. Sy, I was just following orders.
And then Dr. Gory was like, Mama followed orders, but I know I need to look for the truth while she stitches up the truth inside of her corpses. Breaking the cycle. Pursuing the truth. Just because someone above you says, hey, do this, if it's suspicious, you might not want to do it. Hey, you want to cover up this body? Yeah, sure, my boss told me it was okay. Like, bruh. That doesn't make it fine, dude. That don't make it fine. I like it. It's an excuse, but that doesn't mean it's a good excuse. The man was still killed illegally, even if he was a condemned criminal. You may very well be found complicit in murder, Governor.
So that's what it's to be, is it? Even with the threat of conviction, you won't break your silence.
Hold it!
Did you carry out the plan in its entirety?
Aye, I did everything that could at the time.
As you know, Genshin Asogi was shot dead in Logate Cemetery after the escape. Tell me, was that part of the plan too?
My instruction were to do with getting the jock out of the jail and nothing more. Can they tell you anything about what happened after that? Normally, personally, I believe his death was the last part of the plan.
Oh. Daily Vigil's having some PTSD over here. You okay, bro?
Excuse me.
I mean, obviously he's not okay, but you okay? Mr. Vigil, is something wrong?
Yes, sir. What can I do for you, sir?
He's saluting now. What is it? Some sort of Barclay convention? What Governor Kaiden was just saying seemed to upset you. Did it bring up something to mind, perhaps?
For the last 10 years, I've completely blotted out the memories of that time from my mind. I was betrayed by my superiors in the name of my country.
Just as my father was betrayed, it seems.
But you see, thinking back now, I really can't imagine that the shooting of Mr. Asogi in the cemetery was ever part of the plan.
What makes you think that?
Well, it just doesn't make sense, does it? To make the man admit to crimes he didn't commit with the promise of a jailbreak, only to kill him in the end. That's treachery of the worst kind. But the point is, if the intention was always to betray him, why would there be any need for all the chicaneries of an escape?
Ah.
Yes, that's quite true.
If whoever negotiated with Asogi never intended to keep his or her end of the bargain, it would have been far simpler just to let the man be executed in prison as dictated by his sentence. It all happened in that vast chamber of secrets that is Barclay, behind the high prison walls. I suppose nobody knows what really went on in the execution room now. Yes, it's an unsettling mystery, certainly.
Truth be told, there's a wee matter that's never quite made sense to me. If you believe there was some kind of negotiation behind the jailbreak between Asogi and Body at the top, it doesn't quite add up, does it?
Governor Kaiden, I must insist that you explain these doubts you have by amending your formal testimony.
Gads? Aye, go on then. It seemed to me that the Japanese fella didn't have nothing to bargain with.
Hold it!
Admitting to the crimes, that was what he had to bargain with, surely.
I cannot see that myself. After all, did the prosecution not have conclusive evidence against the Carly, eh?
This, you mean? Discovered during the final victim's autopsy. That's every possibility this conclusive evidence was fabricated by Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Objection!
Possibilities are very well, but nothing has been proven. You can holler about misconduct in the trial 10 years ago all you like. But if you can't establish that it happened with hard evidence, no one's going to listen.
Hey, that's right. So what I'm saying is, the convict had nothing he could use for any kind of bargaining at all.
The witness makes an astute point. Logically, it would seem no negotiation could have taken place. And yet the plan to break the man out of prison was definitely put into practice. So he must have been armed with something that gave him an angle to negotiate. So Asogi-san agreed to confess to the crimes because he was assured he'd be broken out of prison later.
I really don't think that Kazuma-sama's father would have engaged in such negotiations.
Then perhaps something compelled him to agree.
What a terrible thing! Using the law to legitimize such underhand dealings with a desperate man, only to double-cross him in the end. It's quite the opposite of justice.
And I can't help feeling there's something about this apparent negotiation that doesn't quite add up.
Something doesn't quite add up, Mr. Naruhodo?
No, it doesn't. But I can't quite put my finger on what yet.
Well, in that case, we must keep digging until we identify the problem.
Do we get to present the papers?
Objection!
Yes, the papers! Confessing under oath to murders he didn't commit on a verbal assurance of later being broken out of prison. Genshi Asogi was taking an incredibly risky gamble. Very true. There was nothing to stop the British breaking their word and executing behind closed doors anyway. Under normal circumstances, no man would stake his life on a gentleman's agreement like that.
Which means that Mr. Asogi must have had a trump card. Something that guaranteed he wouldn't be betrayed. Some kind of weapon. Avers, that fella couldn't possibly have had anything like that. But you know that he did, Governor. Asogi papers, the name given to the last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. Ah! And it turns out that Mr. Asogi was hiding his will in his cell at Barclay. Chief Warder Vigil caught him with it one day. You squealed, did ya, you wee rat? Then I no tell you to keep that a secret? You can't touch me now. What are you gonna do, fire me again? When Mr. Vigil caught sight of that will through the bars of the convict's cell, Mr. Asogi pleaded with the warder. All right then, what's on that paper?
The last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now.
A weapon? And after the convict had been killed following the elaborate pretense of the jailbreak, that document mysteriously disappeared, didn't it? Well, yes, all the prison warders searched through the belongings in his cell, but that will was just nowhere to be found. As I understand it, an exhaustive search was made for the document, which became known as the Asogi Papers. Governor Kaidin, I believe you ordered your prison staff to find it at all costs, didn't you? Eh? Would I be right in saying that you knew that the so-called Asogi Papers had the potential to make great waves somehow? Jings, what the blazes you blethering about? The will was found right and proper in the fella's cell where I said it would be. But how can that be? Where in his cell? We all searched the place, from top to bottom. This man's very delicate. Well, you didn't do a proper job, eh, you peely-wally galoot? You can't criticize me now. I showed it to you before, did I know, young lawyer? Yes, you did. And I have the document here. It's written in Japanese and reads, "The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi." Which means everything is as it should be. Not quite, my lord. You see, there's an undeniable inconsistency here.
What? What inconsistency?
Mr. Asogi described this document as the only weapon he had left. And yet, this will contains nothing of significance at all. Nothing that would have given the convict any leverage. Are you suggesting, my learned friends, not the lost will and testament stored at Barclay Prison all these years is actually a fake? As has clearly been demonstrated already, what went on at Barclay Prison was far from above board. Not lost vilification by the defense was an affront to the entire British legal system. You're an affront to the British legal system. This absurd notion of a weapon is for something for which we have only the former Chief Warder's word. Man could quite easily be lying, or at the very least, sorely mistaken. What? No, I definitely heard him say that, I swear.
Clearly we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to know exactly what happens with these so-called Asogi Papers.
A waste of time. If the will was fake, where's the real document?
Objection!
Yeah, what if Iris is Kazuma's half-sister? I don't know. I just made that up real quick. I don't know. Mr. Vigil was stabbed in the back by the judiciary 10 years ago. He lost everything, very nearly his own life. And now you're going to do it again. You're ready to brand him a liar and turn your back on him without even letting him defend himself. And it's clear that Barclay Prison is hiding something.
It's clear that the jailbreak was masterminded by somebody in the prosecutor's office.
And it's clear that some illicit negotiations took place.
Is your lordship going to gloss over these obvious facts?
What did you say? It would seem that a vocal few here are utterly blind to the truth. Very well then, let the witness testify again. Tell the court precisely what you think you saw of the convict's last will and testament. Yes, sir, my lord. As the warder responsible for condemned convicts, I attended to Mr. Sogi and kept watch over his cell. The night after he was found guilty in court, he was doing something with that will in his cell. We turned the cell inside out looking for it after the execution, but to no avail. I only found out about the Asogi papers when a directive came telling me to impound them. The document was in the folds of the fellow's robe that was left in his cell, a kimono, I think it's called. And his kimono, that's a lie. We searched every inch of the man's cell. We looked through all of his clothes. It can't be true. Well, you no satisfied with calling me a liar the once, eh, you wee fat finger? Nah, there's nothing you can do about it now. You don't have any hold over me anymore. Other than the hold you like to take on my cravat, of course. Is that what you're going to do, is it? Are you going to give me a good shake again? Or are you too scared? These two are wilding out. Little and large, want a double act. We complied with the Asogi's will as far as was possible. All of his personal effects were delivered to his family home in Japan. As a courtesy to the homeland of the most notorious killer our country has ever seen. And we were much obliged. I can confirm that all of my father's belongings arrived safely. Aye, and you can't deny the handwriting is that of your old man, eh? Yes, there's no mistaking that it's my father's brushwork. Really? And this last will and testament was the man's last weapon, was it? I think we can safely assume that the convict was merely prattling, knowing that his end was nigh. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord.
Hold it!
So, would that mean that you conversed with Mr. Asogi? Yes, certainly. Though there was precious little time before his execution was due. He was remarkably calm, considering his days were very much numbered. In all honesty, he really didn't strike one as a man capable of mass murder. Yet he confessed in full to the crimes. And I know. That's why I felt compelled to ask him one day. I can still recall his reply. I'm guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes. But he was so tranquil and intelligent. Put me in the mind of an Eastern holy man. And what about the will you saw him with? What can you tell us about that? It was the beginning of all the drama. I remember it very well, yes.
Hold it!
And he pleaded with you not to report him, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. And like the bot, yeah, you didn't tell me, you blatant breach of trust that was. And I can see that the man had a noble spirit, and I found myself wanting to treat him accordingly.
But according to what you told us 2 days ago, the convict had been strictly forbidden from having any writing materials whatsoever.
Yes, you're quite right.
Ah, so when exactly was the will penned?
That was before the man was remanded in Barclay, obviously. Yes, at the prosecutor's office under supervision of the relevant authorities. I personally instructed Asogi to make a will for the benefit of his family and his homeland.
In that case, why was it found in his cell?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if it was penned at the prosecutor's office, you would have expected that it would remain there for safekeeping, surely. Ah! It's curious. There doesn't seem to be any obvious explanation for why I was subsequently found in the convict's cell. Look, wow. The defense makes an astute point. Well, Governor. The prison governor, can I be expected to ken the inner workings of the prosecutor's office? In that case, Lord Strongheart, perhaps you can shed some light on the matter. I'm unable to offer an explanation here now. I would have to consult with the notary responsible for the will at the time. The fact that my father's will was discovered in his cell is clearly inconsistent with what was expected. I want to know why. Another inexplicable mystery, then. Well, the thing about that will.
Hold it!
It was the governor who ordered the search for the will, as I understand it. Isn't that right? Yes. And when I reported back that we couldn't find it, he grabbed me by the cravat and yelled, "Again, they have disappeared completely," in my face. Aye, well, it done to the governor to keep everybody working as hard as they should.
I think the governor needs a wee taste of his own medicine, Mr. Otto.
The point is, it was clearly considered a very important document, wasn't it? But it proved impossible to find. That's right. And then before I knew it, it was in the morning paper, that blood-curdling article. The executed mass murderer who'd risen from the dead.
Oh, you mean?
The article based on Mr. Drebber's experience in Logate Cemetery. Yes, that was it. The day after I'd read that news, I was summoned to the governor's office. And that's when the awful accusation was made. That you'd aided Genshin Isogi to escape from the prison, resulting in your immediate dismissal. I'm afraid I really don't remember anything after that. As the governor of the prison, I had no choice. I couldn't have done anything else.
Hold it!
And that directive came from the same source as the one instructing you about the jailbreak. Aye, from the top levels of the prosecutor's office. What name was on it? I didn't ken before, and I didn't ken now. All I can tell you is that my orders were to do everything in my power to find that document. The directive said it had to be somewhere inside the fella's cell. Documents? Was that the wording? Documents, not will. Aye, that's what it said. Am I clutching at straws here? I just wonder if it was really Genshin Isogi's last will and testament that was the sender of that directive was after. Continue with her testimony then, witness.
Hold it!
In Mr. Isogi's kimono? Aye, the one he brought with him when he was locked up? Yes, he was permitted to have his personal effects with him during his incarceration, I understand. That's right, he was granted as much freedom as possible during the few days before his execution. Indeed, he had a number of items of personal significance, I remember. He was very reluctant to part with them. Some books, that kimono, his sword. His sword? Karama, the famous sword of the Isogi clan. It bears the soul of my family. Who wants to bet that the document's actually rolled up in the sword? I don't doubt it, but I wasn't really getting at that. Forget it being the soul of the clan. Could the man have had more obvious weapon? Have some respect, Rinosuke. Respectful silence? The warders carry firearms at all times, and the inmates have shackles around their ankles. Couldn't they have hurt anybody with that thing? Still, He was allowed a sword, but no writing materials. Nay, the pen is mightier than the sword, don't you know, so he can't have no pens. He wrote that will before he came to stay with us at Barclay, you see. Dr. Mikotoban was asked to bring the necessary Japanese writing implements to the prosecutor's office.
A Suzuki inkstone, black sumi ink, and some Hanshi rice paper, no doubt.
I was present when he wrote it. I'm sorry to say, the letters just look like a squirming mass of jet black earthworms to me.
Excuse me.
Something to say? He probably wrote the document in English, and that's why they're not talking about the same documents here. Are you feeling faint, Mr. Vigil? Mr. Vigil? Sir? It was Scarlet, sir. What? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to blurt it out like that. Less swaying and more explaining would be helpful. Yeah, Ritosuke, he's having an episode. Leave him alone.
Is it something about the testimony we just heard? Have you recalled something of importance?
Something of importance. Possibly. Or possibly not.
I'm unable to tell which way he's leaning, I'm afraid.
My lord, the defense asked that Mr. Vigil be permitted to supplement his testimony with this, possibly or possibly not, important detail. Permission granted. Go ahead, Mr. Vigil. Yes, it was Scarlet. As I remember it, the document was written in scarlet ink, but perhaps I'm mistaken.
Hold it!
Scarlet, you say? Well, yes. I mean, I only caught sight of it for a brief moment, of course. But even by the dim light in the cell, I remember thinking that it was an unusual color. At the very least. And I'm quite sure it wasn't black. Oh, he don't like that. Witness? Is that really what you saw? Nah, what? Sir! Is something wrong, Lord Strongheart? I apologize. Continue.
What do you make of that, Mr. Naruhodo? For Lord Strongheart to be so visibly shaken in that way?
Oh, didn't I ever? You can plainly see the writing here. It's as black as the Earl O'Ale's waistcoat. Well, yes, you're right. Mr. Vigil, I'd like to confirm one point with you. Did you actually see the content of the document that Mr. Asugi was holding that night? Oh, well, no. I mean, there was no time. As soon as he noticed me there, he hid it behind his back. But it was definitely a will, was it? Yes, it was. That's what Mr. Asugi told me. The court need waste no further time on this matter. We have the will in question in our possession. There is nothing more to add. A will written in scarlet ink. What did Mr. Vigil really see Cosmo's father holding, I wonder?
If you have an inkling, Mr. Naruhodo, you must present it to the court at once.
That testimony doesn't give much away.
So this will really was penned by Cosmo-sama's father. I wonder what he could possibly have meant when he described it as a weapon.
It's starting to sound very much like Mr. Asugi actually had nothing.
But the plan to break him out of jail went ahead, which means he must have had some bargaining power. He must have been hiding something. It's the only explanation that makes sense.
It's starting to sound like Mr. Asugi actually might have had something.
Which is it, Mr. Naruhodo?
I'm not sure, but I feel as though I'm on the brink of understanding all of this. Let's listen to all the information again and see what more we can learn. We can't overlook even the smallest detail.
Absolutely!
So according to Barack, Clint and Mr. Asugi were working on trying to find the true identity of the professor, which I'm thinking at this point is Strongheart. So I think he had evidence that it was Strongheart, but obviously Strongheart in the government, You know what I mean? Like, what is he gonna do? Random foreign student coming over. We're looking for something with red ink, right? Ganema, the Great Blade. It's such a thing of beauty. I want to gaze on it for hours. I want to look inside here. Can I do that? Can we do that? The tip of the great sword. Broken. And it's such a shame. It's been so meticulously cared for over the years. I can almost hear Kanema's sobs. Cosmo must have really taken a swing for that to happen. There's nothing else we can click on here? Anything? I guess not. Alright. Why does those look like little buttons up there? I don't know.
Objection!
Nah, I was hoping maybe it'd be like, look, this is not the document. Alright, so that's a no.
Objection!
No, I was hoping maybe, oh, there's a secret ink bed in the ring. But he didn't have the ring at the time, but I figured we could present it anyways. This will? I don't know.
Objection!
No. Huh. I don't know what it is. What am I supposed to present here? Is there something I haven't clicked on, or what's up with that? I don't know. I mean, we can look at everything that's related. We clicked on this. This doesn't give us anything. I guess that. We looked at the sword. We looked at this. It doesn't yield anything. Wait. Why do you have ink stains? Oh, so was the paper actually Clint's paper?
Objection!
This is... no, it's the wrong statement. I was just looking at evidence. It wasn't on the last one. Oh, no. Oh, no. Alright, I think I got it, though. I think we got it. Is it the conclusion piece of an episode if I don't lose? Oh, I have to...
Hold it! Is that right? Excuse me.
We gotta summon his trauma again. Alright.
Objection!
Scarlet-colored writing is what you said you thought you saw, Mr. Vigil. And I believe that's exactly what you did see. What? Avers again? You've no evidence to say that. Have a look at this report. That's my brother's autopsy report. Yes, and there's something in here that bothered me since I first read it. It states that scarlet-colored ink stains are noted on the fingers of the victim's right hand. Yes, so it does. Scarlet ink. Now, I'm not familiar with the habits of the British aristocracy, I freely admit. But I would hazard a guess that they don't all go around with ink stains on their fingertips, do they? Your wit is not appreciated. My brother was a well-bred and fastidious man. Should ink have soiled his fingertips, he would have cleaned them immediately. What is your point, counsel? My point is this. Whatever Lord Clint Van Zeeks was writing in that unusually colored ink, it must have been directly before his death. Because he died before he had the opportunity to clean his hands. What? I remember something troubled me at the time. At the scene, the lid of my brother's inkwell was open. But Clint was punctilious about such things. It seemed unusual. And the document penned in the color of the ink was in the inkwell ever found. So the document had disappeared. Are you suggesting that the document my father had in his hand that night in his cell was the same document that Lord Clint Van Zeeks was writing moments before his death? Then it was. If Mr. Vigil's testimony is to be believed, it can only mean that, yes. Mr. Vigil! Sir? When you spotted Mr. Sogi with the document in his cell, his precise words were as follows, were they not? Alright then, well, what's on that paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. A last will and testament. Nah. If the conversation really did go as Mr. Vigil says, then what we now know completely changes the meaning of what Mr. Osogi said. You really think? Mr. Vigil did indeed see the convict with a will, but it wasn't that of Genshin Osogi. It was the last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. No. What?
Objection!
This is madness, my brother's last will and testament. That would mean he had chosen to die. That is what it would mean, yes. No, impossible. That is utterly out of the question.
Lord Van Zeeks!
Clint was pursuing the professor. It consumed him day and night. Whatever happens, he would never have abandoned his investigation before its conclusion, never. He wouldn't rest until the job was done, until the killer was caught. The idea that he would willingly accept his own death is obscene.
Objection!
And yet, we can be sure that he was writing his will moments before his death. And that Genshin Isugi came to be in possession of that document. So what could the will possibly have contained? Clearly something that couldn't be made public under any circumstances whatsoever. Because armed with that document, my father was able to negotiate with the judiciary for his life. And it was something so damning that it prompted the powers that be to enact the daring jailbreak plot. Yes, there can be no question that the will contained information of the utmost secrecy. Information of the utmost secrecy? Ah! No, it couldn't be. I've heard more than enough. Pursuing this notion of a phantom will nobody can attest to having seen serves absolutely no purpose.
Objection!
No, my lord. That's unacceptable. What did you say, counsel? The last will and testament that Genshin Isugi had in his possession was that of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. All the testimony and evidence presented to the court has logically led us to that as a possibility. We have a duty to pursue the line of reasoning to its conclusion.
but with no possible means of knowing the contents of the document, there is no line of reasoning to pursue. The reason why Lord Clint Van Zeeks, a man of high noble standing, would have chosen death. Information so secret, people in the judiciary would be willing to negotiate the jailbreak of a condemned killer. The only explanation that fits those facts is an unthinkable truth that turns absolutely everything on its head. But it's just too hideous.
Mr. Naruhodo! However difficult the situation might become, you work with your clients in pursuit of the truth. That's what you resolved to do when you intended to enter the courtroom this morning, if I'm not mistaken.
Mrs. Sato.
So hold your head high and keep soldering on.
Is Clint the professor? And then Genshin did kill Clint. We know that Genshin killed Clint because, like Genshin said, he killed somebody. I think he actually did kill Clint. But what's in the will? Is it a confession of crimes? Is it information about Strongheart? What's going on? 10 years ago, in his final moments, Lord Clint Van Zeeks left behind a will. A will that Genshin Asogi was able to use as a weapon to negotiate his escape from prison. In all probability, the details in the will were related to the Professor case. The defense's last statement is mere conjecture. What are you getting at, man? Ryunosuke. Man, everyone's losing their crap. And as soon as these words come out of my mouth, there's no going back. And I believe that the last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zeeks was in fact... Ooh. Is it a report? Is it an accusation or confession? I feel like it could be all of those. Is he the professor? I think it's a confession. Oh no, I think it's a confession.
You can do this, Mr. Naruhodo!
I believe that what Lord Clint Van Zeeks actually penned that day was a confession. A confession. Regarding the mass murderer known as the Professor. And his true identity.
Objection!
Enough, counsel. What are you saying? Do you even realize? The confession about the true identity of the Professor? That would mean... Lord Van Zeeks, I appreciate this must be hard to take in. But it's the only explanation that fits. The killer that terrorized London a decade ago and became known as the Professor, the man believed to have murdered 5 members of the aristocracy, wasn't Genshin Asogi at all. No, you can't be suggesting. It was in fact the man believed to have been the 5th victim. Lord Clint Van Zeeks himself! The reaction from Kaiden and Daily. It's finally opened, isn't it? Pandora's box. My brother.
Oh! This is too awful! Poor Lord Van Zeeks!
And I wonder, though, did he never suspect?
Mr. Naruhodo?
Lord Barat Van Zeeks is a brilliant prosecutor. Is it conceivable that he didn't realize what his older brother really was? Order on the court. Lord Van Zieks. The professor made use of an enormous hound as his murder weapon. Tell me, did your brother own a dog? Yes, he did. Balmung. He was a well-known hunting dog. People called him a giant. I don't believe this. When my brother would go hunting in the forest of the grounds behind the house, he always took Balmung. After Clint's death, the creature passed away too, almost as if he were following his master. He was a magnificent hunting dog, worthy of the jewel-studded collar around his neck. A jewel-studded collar? That's right, though sadly, some years ago now, it was stolen by a thief who broke into the house one night. A jewel-studded collar stolen by a thief. It so happens that myself and my colleagues have come across such a collar during our time in London. How could you?
There was an old emblem attached to the collar, too, made of pure gold. It was toppled with a small crown and bore an ornate capital B.
What? An emblem bearing the initial B?
Oh my! You know it?
It's the insignia of the Baskerville family. What? The Baskerville? Why is that name coming up now? Baskerville is the family name of my late brother's widow. That pure gold emblem was an heirloom, which Clint acquired upon their marriage. There can be no doubt, then. The collar you've described was Balmung's.
The family insignia of Lord Clint Van Ziek's widow!
There was a considerable amount of blood on the collar when we saw it. Since we know the dog was used for hunting, it could have been from its quarry, of course. But it could be equally have been from human prey. So in fact, the person responsible for these murders of nobles and royals was a noble himself. And that threatened to be an enormous scandal that would irrevocably destabilize British society. My father knew that, and was using it to negotiate his way out of the unjust charges brought against him. But at the very last hour, those he'd bargained with betrayed him, slaying him mercilessly on foreign soil. Well, can you deny it, Lord Strongheart? 10 years have passed, and still now, the 6 million inhabitants of our great capital rest easy, believing that justice was done. That though his anonymity remains, the diabolical murderer was caught and executed. Very well then, you may have the truth. Tell me then. Tell me what Clint really was. Lord Clint Van Zieks was too pure of heart. When he became a prosecutor and went in pursuit of the black roots of crime, he drove himself into a corner. He came to the uncomfortable realization that to fight the most fiendish of criminals requires one to become even more fiendish oneself. Clint. So was Clint the OG Reaper? The 19th century was a truly miraculous 100 years for the Great Britain, and indeed the whole world. New industry, new technology, and with the birth of the Metropolitan Police Service, new law and order. But these dazzling new developments meant ever deeper shadows were cast on society. Water sullied by factories, air thick with noxious fumes and crime, growing daily to fill the darkness. Lord Clint Van Zieks made it his mission to combat that darkness. But as time went on, it slowly ate at his soul, until eventually he was consumed. It's ironic, really, and somewhat surprising, that the truth has once again been unearthed by a Japanese. Once again, what do you mean? 10 years ago, your father, Genshin Asogi, turned up at my office one night. The professor? Yes, beyond shadow of a doubt. You must issue a warrant to search his home at once. Don't be absurd. The man comes from one of our country's most illustrious families. He's a paragon of justice here in the capital. Yes, that's the point. That's why none of your British can see it. He's using his noble status as a diversion whilst he commits these atrocious crimes behind the scenes. Do you have evidence? Nothing definitive as yet, but he keeps an enormous savage hound on the estate. We need the full support of the judiciary for this. We're up against a member of the aristocracy. So a large family estate has a fierce guard dog. You should know that's commonplace here in Britain. I'm sorry, but I can't possibly put Scotland Yard onto this based on the tenuous accusation of a visiting student. So I turned down Asogi's plea, and as a result, he took it upon himself to visit the Van Zeek's mansion on his own. We can only imagine now what happened between the two men. Though we know the outcome, of course. Lord Clint Van Zeek's perished. And I don't believe this.
So, in actual fact, Kazuma-sama's father did...
He made the late Lord Van Zeek's meet the same fate. He put a permanent end to the professor's killings by taking the drastic measure of ending the perpetrator's life. As soon as I heard, I hurried to the mansion. When I arrived, it was easy to grasp what had happened. And what about the will? Asogi must have already taken it. Nothing of that nature was found at the scene. We had no idea of the existence of such a document at that time. I was the only person who knew of the true identity of the professor. So, I resolved to keep it a secret, and to guard the secret to the bitter end. So you're admitting to it? That you were behind it all? It was you, then, who pinned the crimes on my father. And I did what I needed to be done in order to protect the law and order of the British Empire. Even if that meant employing an unforgivable ruse. Then it was you who arranged this fabricated evidence. I ordered that detective to take care of it, whilst keeping the truth from him, naturally. Gregson. Obviously, he opposed me at first.
Now you're off your rocker! We can't do something like that!
There's no question that it was Asogi who murdered Lord Van Zeek's. The house staff have made statements that they saw the man running from the mansion that night.
Yes, well, I've no doubt it was that Japanese fella. But we haven't got a shred of conclusive evidence against the man. And worse than that, he doesn't keep a dog, so we're short of a murder weapon to boot.
And we're short on time, Gregson. We must stop this man's rampage for the good of the country. So we'll use whatever means necessary. Do I make myself clear, detective?
Blimey!
So that night 10 years ago, when I was attacked by those thugs in the back streets, and Genshin's ring was taken, that was him, was it? That was Gregson and some hired help. Then the detective handed the stolen ring to Dr. Wilson, who feigned its discovery from the victim's stomach during that autopsy. And in light of the decisive evidence, Mr. Asogi was found guilty of the charges brought against him. However, behind the scenes, he had actually already struck a deal with his accusers, in which he agreed to silently accept the charges. But I just don't believe that part. As far as I knew the man, my father despised such underhanded dealings. It was extremely easy to make him comply. You see, he had one crippling weakness. What weakness?
Isn't it obvious? You, Kazuma Sogi. Me? Perhaps you have no desire to return to your homeland, Asogi. What? Though I hear you may have a 14-year-old son. Agree to cooperate and accept your guilt without contention. And you will see Japan and your son again. Hey, I'm the same age as Kazuma. You scoundrel. Whether you choose wisely or not, it will be a closed trial by order of Her Majesty. So whatever rash claims you might make in courts, we'll have no troubles in stifling them. There's only one outcome for you, Asogi. The gallows. Don't forget that I still have a weapon at my disposal. A document revealing a truth that I know you're desperate to keep hidden. Yes, it hadn't escaped my mind, which is the only reason that I'm willing to bargain with you. I only want to protect this country's law and order. You understand? So, what's it to be, Asogi? Kazuma. He did it for me. And as I told him at the time, my motive was simply to protect Britain from the damage the truth would do. To protect this country's law and order. At any cost. He just looks extra evil, though. It's like, I get why he did it and how he reasoned himself into it, but you also could have just been like, look, we even took out the roots of society of those higher up to make a point that, like, no matter who you are, if you break the law, if you're doing something bad, you deserve to get, punished for it, I feel like, yeah, people would be like, oh, holy crap, the Van Zieks family had a murderer, but the justice system took care of it, and wow, that would actually be cool, right? Like if someone's a mass murderer, I don't care who you are, if you're rich and famous, you still don't get away with that just because some people might get shocked. Oh, wow. Like, let's say, I'm just making stuff up here, but like if Kim Kardashian was like a serial killer, be like, oh my god, I can't believe Kim Kardashian would do that, but like, it doesn't matter. You don't get to get away with it just because, like, oh my god, my life is ruined. What am I going to read in the tabloids? Kim Kardashian got executed for being a serial killer. Like, I don't see how Strongheart was like, yep, this is the best option. Because I don't like the face he keeps making. The face he keeps making makes me think that because Asogi still had that in his pocket, that he killed him. I don't know. So I don't know. I never dared to let myself even consider this possibility until now. But in the light of all this treachery, I have to ask. The mastermind behind the Reaper of the Bailey. Was it you, Lord Mael Strongheart? A rather brilliant idea, wouldn't you say, Lord Brock Van Zieks? You know what I mean? Like, he's just doing where Clint left off. He's like, yep, that sounds good to me too. I'll just keep doing that stuff and make it sound like I'm just doing it for the good of society, you guys. Isn't it fine? I'm just trying to protect law and order, right? Oh my god, I'm just gonna hire a bunch of assassins and it's gonna be fun. I'm not evil, I swear. Not the spirit of your late brother, that paragon of justice should return to reap justice for his sibling. Could there be a more appetizing tale for London's masses, I ask you? What? What brazen? I knew that you'd play the part to perfection, but your role really wasn't that of some embodiment of death. No, you were London's guardian angel. An angel with bloody hands? I think not. Those who had cooperated with me were already were only too happy to participate in my plan. Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson. My minions worked tirelessly to ensure that the finger of guilt could never come to rest on you. It's all thanks to them that you were exalted as the demigod of the Reaper became. But Dr. Wilson left Britain 4 years ago when he was invited to work in Japan. That's right. So I had to employ the services of the young protege after that. Dr. Courtney Scythe. Dr. Scythe? So what with the execution of the Professor and the subsequent reign of the Reaper of the Bailey? I've successfully safeguarded law and order in a mighty capital for the past decade. Evil. That is everything. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, I do hereby confess, it was I who sired the concept of the Reaper. However, let me say in my defense, it was all for the preservation of law and order across the entire empire. This man thinks he's Batman or some shit. There is no one left now who can reveal the precise truth of what happened 10 years ago. Therefore, this trial can go no further. Now, I would like to entreat all those present. Beyond these 4 walls, nobody need know the truth. Even Her Majesty must be protected from this. I trust you all appreciate the importance of my request. It is, of course, for the good of the country. Can he do this? Can the trial really end now?
Hold it!
I have one last question for the accused, Lord Van Zieks. What? Of course, I know that you're a highly accomplished prosecutor, so I find it hard to believe that you didn't have any doubts at all. That you never suspected your older brother. Yes, the same thought occurred to me. It was only once, but yes, and I couldn't say that I never had my doubts. My brother's sense of justice was extremely strong, perhaps too strong, I observed. At that time, there were members of the aristocracy who were bleeding the country dry for their own gain. And since they were nobles, they were untouchable. For my brother, it was a source of great turmoil. And coincidentally, at the same time, the Professor began his terrifying reign. During the time of the Professor killings, my brother did not appear to be himself. And that made you suspect? Yes. But it was only once, no more. Only once, really. Clint wasn't the culprit. That was my conclusion at the time, and I still believe that now. Do you have any evidence to support that idea? The third victim was the Lord Chief Justice at the time. It was he who had recognized my brother's potential and trained him as a prosecutor. No matter what the circumstances, it's unthinkable that my brother could have killed his friend and mentor. That will do. Neither Clint Van Zieks nor Genshin Asogi still walk this earth. However much we debate this matter now, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. But there are only 2 extant pieces of evidence from the time. The woebegone ring that acted as the incriminating evidence to condemn Genshin Asogi, and the 3-page last will and testament pinned in black ink and left behind the man. The wretched truth of what happened is exactly as I've explained. Oh, Strongheart's hiding the will somewhere, isn't he? Or Sholmes has it for some ungodly reason. Later today, I will present myself at the Ministry of Justice for whatever sanction is deemed appropriate. That is all. Court is adjourned.
Objection!
Good. You better object to that, Ish. Object it to the next dimension. You better slam that desk. Thank you, Kazuma. Me? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have made this 11th hour discovery. What discovery? My lord, I'm afraid I must insist the trial continues. I beg your pardon. As the court has been reminded today, after all, we must stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth. And to that end, one particular statement made by somebody in this courtroom moments ago revealed a very subtle contradiction. What contradiction? But all I did was ask the accused one simple question.
Well, it became with Lord Van Zeeks in his recollection about his brother, but Lord Strongheart didn't permit the defendant to speak at length.
I'm merely pointing out that we can draw no further useful conclusions here. So what on earth is the contradiction? One of them definitely just said something contradictory. It's time to identify who. Who said something contradictory? So is Strongheart actually the professor and he was just doing the same crap that he does now? Just back then? Is why would he kill his friend and mentor? Who said something contradictory? It's inconceivable that he would kill his friend and mentor. I mean... I think it's Lord Strongheart said something. I think Van Zeeks is just straight up telling the truth. It was Lord Strongheart, I'm sure of it. Something he said was slightly off. Come on, Ryunosuke. Think back over his words. Find the problem. Neither Clint Van Zeeks nor Genshin Asogi still walk this earth. However much we debate this matter now, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. Ah, yes, it's this part. Duh, easy. Because that red ink will still exists somewhere. The question is where? There are only 2 accident pieces of evidence from that time. The woebegone ring that acted as the incriminating evidence to condemn Genshin Asogi, and the 3-page last will and testament penned in black ink left behind by the man. Lord Strongheart, would you care to explain? Explain what, Counsel? And among the statements you made just a few moments ago, something you said was inconsistent with a certain piece of evidence we have. Inconsistent? And whilst an inconsistency remains, the defense has a right to pursue an explanation. Ryunosuke, what? Let me warn you about the statements you're making, Counsel. They may very well prove fatal. You claim my words contain a contradiction. With what piece of evidence, I ask you? Ooh. Alright, so it's not referring to that red will, although I think... honestly, I swear, you guys, I was looking at this earlier. I feel like this looks like a button, but we can't investigate it. I feel like this looked like a button. I was trying to play with this earlier to see if it comes out. I feel like the will is hidden in Kanama. The will of Clint, because here, he wants all of his possessions to go to Kazuma. Send it all. And this was in the cell. And it disappeared from the cell. It has to be the sword. Dear me. Oh, this evidence makes it very clear indeed. But there is no contradiction with either the defendant or myself, naturally. No. The contradiction here lies squarely with you, Counsel. Ah! Apparently not. Okay. I thought I was on to something there. Aw, man. Now Van Zeeks is even making fun of us. Oh my goodness, why is everyone clowning on me? Alright, it has to be, unless it's not Strongheart, but I'm pretty sure it has to be Strongheart. Is it the fact that the will sends to send everything back to Cosma? I mean, I can try it. It's only... That's one thing I've been really happy about this game, is they make it sound like very intense, but like in other, like especially the original trilogy, there'd be points where you have to make a very important decision where it's like a 5 penalty, where you just immediately lose the game if you're wrong. And it seems like we would have encountered this situation a few times, but it's not. It's only a single penalty, so it's a little forgiving, which is good, because I punted the first time, but I got it right the second time. This here is the will left behind by Mr. Asogi. The 2-page will. Ah. What? Yet moments ago, your precise words were the 3-page last will and testament. Ah. Could it be that originally there was a 3rd page? For a moment, I thought perhaps you'd identified something worthwhile, but it's a mere trifle, I see. A trifle? Governor Kaiden. Eh? What can I do for you, sir? You were present when the Japanese man penned his will and last testament. Aye, I was there for sure. Remember the black verum? Like scrolls to this day. And I'm quite certain, my lord, that there was a 3rd page at the time. What? Only the first 2 pages were actually will, though. If I mind correctly, the 3rd was a message to the lad back in Japan. For legal purposes, we only acquired his will. And wouldn't they have wanted any uncomfortable words about Britain to get back to Japan, eh? So it was decided that the 3rd page ought nay be sent.
Objection!
How dare you make that decision? I had a right to know what it said, to hear my father's final words to me. The courtroom is no place for sentimentality, counsel. As it happens, I have the 3rd page of the document with me and now. My father's message. It will be given to you at the end of the proceedings. It'll be too late once the trial is over. We need to know what it says now. Even the slightest thing may give us a vital clue. My lord, the defense calls for the Genshin Asogi's last words to his son to be read out loud before the court now. Your request is denied. The inevitably Maldian words cannot be of no consequence now.
Objection!
The prosecution agrees. The court should know the contents of that message. Every possible piece of evidence must be thoroughly examined. Very well then, Governor Kaiden. You will read the 3rd page of the document for all to hear. Yes, sir, only I should point out, my lord, that I cannot actually read Warem language. Who is this? It's beautiful language. Shame on you, Barry. If I could be of assistance here, I would be happy to translate the words into English for the court. I forgot that Susato's dad was here. That makes sense. Father! You're still here, are you, Dr. Mikotaba? Naturally. I consider myself a member of the judiciary, and albeit a lowly one. But perhaps I should quietly withdraw after I've translated Genshin's message. Your cooperation is much appreciated. Kazuma, the truth is shrouded in darkness. A darkness only our clan's great sword can pierce. Mighty Kanama, twist thy head and watch them fall. All thy mortal foes. Oh yeah, it's in the sword. It's in the sword, dude! That's the end of the message, it would seem. In the haiku poem, twist thy head. Father, what is Kadama? This name of the Asogi clan's famous sword. A razor-sharp blade known to all, passed down for generations, and embodies the Japanese spirit. It's not known to me. The katana sword that was submitted as evidence earlier in these proceedings. And the one worn by the prosecution counsel when he confronted Inspector Gregson.
All these procrastinations are beginning to try my patience. Adjournment of this court is long overdue. As the presiding judge, I have been accommodating as possible of the will of the courtroom. However, despite all that, no new information has come to light.
Fake news? You sound like you want to run. You got somewhere to be? You haven't even looked at your little pocket watch, dude. I think you're just trying to get away from something.
In pursuit of justice, Lord Clint Van Zeeks tragically lost all sense of morality. When he murdered his former mentor, clearly he was already devoid of his normal faculties.
Objection!
How dare you! I refuse to believe that of my brother. Too much time has passed. We cannot ever hope to know more than we do now. Especially since the alleged will that he penned in his final moments appears to have been lost forever.
Lord Strongheart, you appear to be in something of a hurry to wrap things up. I wonder why.
I knew it.
We've heard you state time and time again during these proceedings that everything you did was in the interest of the protecting British law and order.
And I stand by that. Without the Reaper, we could never have achieved the reduction in crime the capital has seen.
Objection!
What about Inspector Gregson, then? And Dr. Wilson. They were no criminals. You used them to achieve your ends, and then you had them killed. However you dress it up, there was nothing fair or just about that.
Lord Strongheart, what exactly is it that you're hiding?
Dr. Mikotaba, were you not to quietly withdraw after the translation of your former associate's will?
See, I will admit, for a second they had me convinced that Lord Strongheart wasn't actually the Reaper. Or that he wasn't actually the professor. And I was like, oh, holy crap, Clint was the professor. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. But I think it's the same crap, different person. Oh, hey, yo, Gregson, go contact the assassin. Hey, go assassinate this person. Hey, go assassinate this person. This man be crawling up in Clint's ear, being like, you know, it would be great. You know, it'd be great if all these people just died. I'ma just keep doing this crap for the next 10 years. Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. We should kill them. It'll be fine. Trust me. No one will ever find out that you had anything to do with my schemes. Like, they had me convinced. I was like, oh, okay, Strongheart's only the Reaper. He wasn't the professor. He wasn't. It was actually Clint. I was like, oh my goodness. Barack's life just shattered in front of his eyes. I ain't falling for that anymore. Y'all got me good. But I'ma get you back in hopefully the next hour. I don't know how much longer we have left here.
In this courtroom, no argument carries weight unless it is supported by evidence. And it would seem that the defense has no more evidence to present.
Yo, can I mess with the sword? Can I twist your head? Ah, I can! I swear there's a button.
Mighty Kanama, twist thy head and watch them fall, all thy mortal foes. That's the proper way to use the sword, is it?
Maybe I should try it. It hurts my neck, that's the trouble.
Mr. Naruhodo, if I may make a suggestion, I think perhaps it doesn't mean your head.
Oh my goodness, Ryunosuke is low level IQ. Bruh, you twisted, you thought to literally twist your head while holding the sword instead of twisting the head of the sword? We need to get this man in some remedial English classes so he can learn how to read properly. Or remedial Japanese. I don't know what he needs, but he needs to understand the meaning of words.
I once studied the history and development of the katana some time ago, and as I'm sure you're probably aware, the sword's head is the part at the very end of the hilt.
It looks like a button.
It's written as head in Japanese, but it's pronounced kashida, I believe.
Kashida, huh? So Mr. Asogi's words really mean twist the butts of the hilt. You don't think? Yo, there better be a will in there. Ah! Look what's inside it.
Is that
a tightly wound sheet of parchment? Scarlet ink! It's written in scarlet ink! I penned this, my last will and testament.
in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. This is it, isn't it?
Mr. Naruhodo, look at the signature at the end!
Clint Van Zeek's! And the date, 10 years ago, on that fateful night!
So, for 10 years, it's been silently concealed inside Kanama and nobody knew! The last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zeek's!
Wait! Oh my goodness! Look at this! This is unbelievable! I need to click on it! Ryunosuke, why wouldn't you just read it to us? Get me out of the sword investigation! We need to read the will! Why can't I click on it? Oh my... We just gotta wait till we gotta present it, huh? Is that how it's gonna be? In which case... I hereby order all discourse from this proceedings to be struck from the record. Yeah, well, I'm gonna object to that. Let me get some air in my lungs. This is my last chance.
Mr. Naruhodo!
I have to present some decisive evidence now, or it's all over. But can I? I can! We presenting some crap today, boys! Wait, my lord. I feel I hate it that we have to keep calling him my lord. As it happens, the defense does have some evidence to present. What? Don't be absurd! There is nothing of relevance remaining from the time.
Objection!
It's high time that you realize something, my lord. This gentleman has an uncanny habit of producing evidence at the final hour that had escaped everyone else's attention. Nonsense! What is it, Ryunosuke? What do you have? Oh, you guys didn't see that commotion at the bench where I unearthed Clint Van Zeek's will? I dare say, the final, decisive piece of evidence that will reveal the whole truth about this rotten tale. How can you? Decisive? Well, it would appear there's no escaping it now, my lord. Oh, Susato's dad knows what's up. Let it be so then. Present whatever you think you have that can settle this decade-old enigma, if you're capable. Rude. What exactly is this evidence that the defense claims to be so decisive? Bruh, they need to have this be a full penalty.
Take that!
Take that, Lord Strongheart! There's a single piece of evidence that can clarify what really happened 10 years ago.
The last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zeek's!
Ha! A wonderfully astute observation, I'm sure. But in case it had escaped your notice, that document was lost long ago. That's right, it was, but I found it. And I have it right here, discovered just moments ago. Impossible! That can't be! Everything that's happened comes back to this will. This document is the key that will unlock the entire mystery. My brother's last will and testament. Where did you find that? It was rolled up inside this. Inside Kanama. That ultimate weapon Genshin Asogi obtained has lain undisturbed in the hilt of the sword all these years, just waiting for the right time to emerge and reveal the truth. And the signature and seal certainly look official. My god, it's true. It's my brother's handwriting, there can be no mistake. I forbid the contents of that document from being read out. Do you hear me? I strictly forbid it. Forbid these nuts, bro. You can't do that, my lord. This document could explain everything. That document could literally destroy the meaning of justice in this country. Well, then you know what? Maybe it's not the right meaning of justice this country should have. That's all I'm saying. If the document confessing to murdering people because you told him to destroys the sense of justice in this country, maybe you should have a different sense of justice. I demand that you hand it to me at once. Oh, you can catch these hands? Is that what you said? Because that's what it sounded like you said to me. What? Why are you trying to hide?
Could it be that you already know what's written on this page? Nah, what are you implying? I'm implying that you're behind all this. Court is adjourned with immediate effect. Clear the courtroom.
Objection!
Do that, my lord, and you'll suffer a fatal blow as Lord Chief Justice. And I beg your pardon? Forcibly ending a trial without good reason. And not any trial, a closed trial by order of Her Majesty the Queen. To defy the monarch's will is treason. Evil, evil, evil.
Well, my lord. It would rather appear as though proceedings aren't going to go quite as you'd hoped.
You fools! Go ahead, Ryunosuke. Read it. The prosecution gives its full support. Very well, then. No, for God's sake. No! Bro, you changed a different color there. You okay? I don't want you to be okay. It's fine. You can lose oxygen. I pen this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. The hour is 11 p.m., and I sit at my writing desk in my office. My good friend Asogi stands at my shoulder. He has expressed his intent to invoke the dying ritual of the duel, that I may depart this world with honor. An honor of which I am utterly undeserving. The Japanese are truly merciful people. I, Clint Van Zeeks, Lord of the Manor of the Van Zeeks estate, hereby confess to the following. I am the killer who has come to be known in society as the Professor, guilty of 4 counts of murder. I will not here discourse the corruption rife among the aristocracy, which to me, as one of them, is so apparent. However, 6 months ago, I took the life of a member of the House of Lords at the heart of the depravity. A demon who habitually sacrificed the common man to further his own interests, abusing his position of power. The law's impotence against such vile avarice. Only a fellow demon can rid society of this menace. That demon was my quarry, upon whom I willingly set my great hound. But though I am a hunter of some experience, I am a poor felon, it seems. My guilt was at once recognized by another, and I became subject to his extortion. He held over me the threat of exposing my wicked crime to my beloved wife and brother. Under that threat, I have done this man's bidding for months now, killing those he demanded I kill. As I watched my former mentor perish before my eyes at the jaws of the hound I commanded, I realized that I had lost the last shred of decency within me and sunk to the level of a wild beast. There was no path back to the light, be it I, or my dear friend Asogi, who dies this night. I am eternally damned. To my extortioner, male Strongheart, may you feel the jaws of the beast at your throat every time you swallow. So now we know. Yes, Clint Van Zeeks was a murderer. But somebody was directing him and naming his victims. His extortioner, Lord Male Strongheart. It was you!
Lord Strongheart, a moment ago, you claimed that what the court has just heard could destroy justice in this country. But you weren't trying to protect justice at all. All you were trying to do was conceal the secret of your true nature and the countless lives you sacrificed up till now.
It just didn't make sense to me. That, the third victim, the former Lord Chief Justice, was my brother's benefactor and a man of lofty principles. As I said, Clint had no possible reason to kill the man. But you did, didn't you, Lord Strongheart?
to eliminate the man who stood between you and the office you'd set your sights on. So you used your own hunting dog, Clint Van Zeeks, to take him down.
It had to be done. London's unsavory shadows are deep, and the arm of the law fails to reach their depths. Crime must be cut off at the roots, but the Lord Chief Justice at the time couldn't see that. He was weak. Lofty principles, you say? Tantamount to cowardice, if you ask me. Which is why I took his place, in order to fight the crime he was allowing to spread like wildfire. By murdering the man. The Reaper, the Professor, the name makes no difference. As I've explained countless times already, it was all done for the furtherance of law and order in London.
Objection!
Are you going to legitimize the murder of my father now, too?
Ah, Genshin Asogi. Well, that was unfortunate. I had fully intended to send him back to Japan, as we'd agreed.
I don't believe you. It was you, wasn't it? You killed him.
No, it wasn't me who took your father's life.
Then who?
On the night following his mock execution, I went to Logate Cemetery at 3 times in the morning with Jigoku.
Judge Jigoku!
There had to be a collaborator on the Japanese side to manage Asogi's treatment after his repatriation. Jigoku had fierce ambition. It made him easy to manipulate. 10 years ago, after he stood trial for the destruction of the witness stand, I had words with him. When I told him the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs could be his, he couldn't agree fast enough. Seishiro, you fool! As you know, Asogi escaped the prison in a closed casket and was subsequently interred. We intended to dig him out of his grave before he ran out of air. But sadly, all did not go to plan. Robot scream, There was an unexpected visitor to the cemetery with his own ideas about digging up graves. A man who witnessed what nobody was supposed to see. Enoch Drebber. Of course, I knew grave robbers frequented London's cemeteries. But that grave on the particular night... Blast! If people find out the convict wasn't really executed, the scandal will rock the very foundations of the Empire. Then what do we do? Shoot him, Mr. Jigoku. Shoot Asogi at once. He can't live now that this has happened. He has to go. What are you talking about? You had an agreement. You promised him he could return to Japan. Everything has changed now. If the truth got out because of this, both of us would be finished. Forever. Come on, Jigoku, do it! Pull the trigger! Shoot! You know what? He likes calling everybody else cowards. But this man hasn't physically killed somebody himself. Because you know what? He's too much of a coward to do it himself. Hey, Jigoku, bro, you know what? You could be Minister of Foreign Affairs if you help me get his body out. But you know what? It didn't work out well, so I think you should just kill him for me. Hey, Clint, I know you did that one thing. I know you killed somebody. That's not very cool. But you know what? I won't tell people you kill people if you kill more people for me. Because I want them dead, but I won't do it myself. Hey, Gregson, yo, what's up, bro? These people, they got away with murder. They did stuff. They killed your buddy Clint. Hey, you want to go kill people? You want to be a reaper with me? You want to go hire someone to go kill people for me? Because I don't want to do it myself. Jigoku shot Asogi from the shadows. The grave robber was so close the blood sprayed over his coat. He fled as fast as his legs would carry him. Then Jigoku and I put Asogi's body back in the grave from which he'd just emerged. When I later learnt of the waxwork models present at the scene as well, I made her swear to 2 things. Never to remove the professor's mask, and never to speak of the events that night. And with that, the secret was buried along with Asogi's corpse. So, now you know what really happened in Logate Cemetery that night. was Jigoku, your Japanese acquaintance, who killed Asogi in the end, you see. He claimed to be the man's friend, but when push came to shove, he pulled the trigger. Just before Mr. Jigoku left the courtroom earlier, he said that the assassin exchange proposal was a demand from his British counterparts, not a request. So you coerced them too, using what happened in the graveyard. By that time, Jigoku was the Minister of Foreign Affairs negotiating international treaties with Britain. You can imagine what would have happened if it came to light he'd murdered a compatriot 10 years earlier. He would have lost everything. I merely reminded him of that. How do you sleep at night? These past 10 years, I've fought tirelessly with the darker recesses of London's criminal underworld. And I've used whatever means necessary to ensure that justice prevails and law and order reigns supreme.
Objection!
That couldn't be further from the truth. The fact is, you haven't fought crime at all. How dare you! I saved Clint Van Zeeks from dishonor and his death.
Objection!
Whilst behind the scenes, you systematically buried anyone who stood in your way. And then, you made my father take the blame. It was unavoidable. It was the only way to protect our justice system and public order. Let's not forget the others you had killed as well. Setting the defendant up as the Reaper to cover up the truth behind the murders of countless more. Nuts! Enough! Do you have any idea of the conniving that led to the acquittals of those wretched criminals? We have to fight fire with fire. Our courts can't function without a Reaper. Can't you see that I've done all this for the country? This has been my struggle.
Objection!
Oh yeah, must be so hard for you to say, hey bro, let's kill some people, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna help my career, and then I get to hold it over you for the rest of your life. Sounds great! You've done nothing. As Lord Van Zeeks here has worked tirelessly and justly in court while enduring the disgrace of the Reaper name. And Inspector Gregson, fraught with anguish for having sullied his hand through a desire to do the right thing. Not to mention Genshin Asogi, who risked his life going in pursuit of the truth you tried to hide. No, the darker recesses of London's underworld were largely filled by you. You little! When will you get it through your thick skulls? That it was all for Queen and Country. I'm tired of that excuse. You've consistently twisted the truth for bargaining power to make others do your bidding. Nothing more. People who willingly twist the truth and coerce others have no right to call themselves part of the judiciary. I strongly suggest you don't ever talk of justice again. Ah! Well, 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 dear me, my good fellows, dear me. A well-deserved round of applause, I think, for a quite marvelous performance. Ah, he's lost it. But what are you talking about? Those delightfully grave expressions, that beautifully pronounced Queen's English. Really, our friends from the Far East are quite the picture of industriousness. You fraud, keep your mockery. Please, don't misunderstand. It really is exactly as you both said. What are you trying to say? I have occupied the darker recesses of London's underworld and, how did you put it, done nothing. I confess it's a little embarrassing to have it pointed out quite so starkly, but yes, I really have done nothing, which means I can be indicted for nothing. No. What? It's true. Personally, I've committed no crime. I've merely been surrounded by fools who've acted very rashly indeed.
Objection!
You can't get away with that. You've consistently preyed on people's weaknesses. And what? Threaten them? Are you sure it wasn't just bargaining? I would like to address all the good lords, ladies and gentlemen of the judiciary here present. You all know of these darker recesses in our great capital, and deep down I believe you also know that to fight those who dwell there requires at least some of us to occupy the darkness ourselves. So let me appeal to your good senses now. Consider the situation with me. If this catalogue of horrifying revelations were to become common knowledge among the 6 million inhabitants of London, what might happen? To learn that the infamous murderer of royals and nobles was a respected member of the aristocracy himself. That evidence was fabricated in the scapegoat's trial amid the secret negotiations with prosecutors to effect the jailbreak. That the Reaper of the Bailey was an organized group of assassins managed by Scotland Yard inspectors. And finally, that it was all masterminded by the Lord Chief Justice himself. If the general public of Britain knew the truth, all faith in the police and the prosecutor's office would be completely lost, without doubt. Public order in the capital would completely break down, would be cast back into the lawless days of last century. Precisely as it was 100 years ago when 1 in 10 of the population were criminals. To think what we've accomplished since then: a public policing force, comprehensive set of laws. And if we want to continue to protect this new era of law and order, I say again, we must at times occupy the darkness ourselves. We have successfully identified and apprehended the man responsible for taking Inspector Gregson's life. That is all that was expected of this trial. All these other matters have been discussed. Will be eliminated from the minutes of these proceedings in the interest of preserving law and order, and to protect Her Majesty the Queen, of course. Well, my lords, ladies, and gentlemen, what say you? Part of me is like, yo, I bet you Herlock is in the office of the Queen with his little rabbit and she's listening. He's like, how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this? Is Sholmes gonna break in with the Queen? Sholmes should break in with the Queen. Are you hearing this? This is the will of the British judiciary. For your rousing response, friends, I express my heartfelt gratitude. Therefore, in accordance with the overwhelming wishes of the court, the record shall be erased. You have to respect the man's ability to turn a situation to his favor. Lord Strongheart really is a master of manipulation.
You've conclusively proven his guilt, yet still he manages to evade justice. I just don't know what we can do.
Renosuke. It looks like the trial really is going to come to an end now. I'm almost out of options, I think. There's really only one path left open to me. I use evidence. I use that little good luck charm. Yes, as I know only too well. The only thing that carries any weight in court is hard evidence.
But Mr. Naruhodo, what evidence is there to use at this stage in the trial?
I have an idea. I don't know whether anything will come of it, but if there was ever a time for using this particular item we have among the evidence, it's now.
Take that!
Oh my! Yes! It's Mr. Sholmes asked you if you had that with you earlier!
We've exposed all of Lord Strongheart's wrongdoing now. And I have no doubts that Mr. Sholmes had already deduced how exactly the truth would unfurl.
So I think it must be time for the great detective to take center stage, don't you?
Yes, absolutely! Let's take this hare by the ears then, and heave!
All right, here goes. Heave! Ow, 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 ow. My dear fellows, I must remind you every time a gentle tug would suffice. Mr. Sholmes! You're looking in quite the wrong direction, Mr. Naruhodo, because I'm over here.
Ah! Mr. Naruhodo, he's...
What? Excuse me?
It's Mr. Sholmes!
Oh my goodness, this man's a hologram. Hatsune Miku looking ass. I wasn't expecting you back, Sholmes. Delighted to be here again, Lord Strongheart. What is the meaning of this? Bailiff, seize him! Put that man in irons! This is a closed court. You've been warned once already, man.
What the? We can't get a hold of him, my lord! We just go right through him!
He's dancing. Why is this man dancing? Sham spear looking. I'm afraid your efforts are wasted, you see. The great detective you see before you is composed entirely of light and shadow. An image, if you will. Mr. Naruhodo, I must congratulate you on your fine deductions. Mr. Sholmes, what on earth is... Are you familiar, I wonder, with the invention known as the telephone? Well, yes, I hear that some public telephones have been installed recently in Tokyo.
The sound of the speaker's voice is converted to an electrical signal and transmitted instantly to another place.
Quite. Sounds are transmitted, so could not images keep them company, I mused. Nyrus and I did some modest experimentation to develop such a device specifically for this very day.
Modest experimentation, Mr. Sholmes? What a modest description!
And somewhat incidentally, I thought we might just as well transmit an entire scene. Somewhat incidentally, Mr. Sholmes. Now you're just being immodest. Do you mean to say you're not actually here, Sholmes? Nah, I knew my trusty partner would have no trouble grasping the concept. Except he's grasping the stand to steady himself after your shock arrival.
Poor father! I would have hoped he might have been forewarned, being the great detective's great partner.
Leave my courtroom at once! Get out! I'll swear to you! Dear me! You, on the other hand, Lord Stronghearts, appear to have a very poor grasp of the situation. Allow me to reiterate, I am not here, which would, I hope, lead naturally to one asking, where exactly are you? The very question I was awaiting! I am at present enjoying the air in a rather splendid garden. A garden? Not just any garden, you understand? A garden at Buckingham Palace! This dude literally was like, hey, yo, your majesty, you want to see some cool crap? You want to see some cool stuff going on? I have a really interesting trial you might want to watch. This man literally was like, yo, what's up? Yo, what's up, girl? You want to see a trial? What? You can't be! Buckingham Palace! What's Buckingham Palace, Miss Susato? I've never heard of it. Ryunosuke's not watched any episodes of Doctor Who, confirmed.
Do you ever read the news, Mr. Naruhodo?
Mr. Sholmes! Is Iris with you there? Nah, well, no. Iris is currently enjoying some tea with the Queen. This is great! This is great! Her Majesty? Not just any Her Majesty, you understand? Her Majesty, the Queen of British Empire! What? What?! What on earth is all this about?
Buckingham Palace is Her Majesty the Queen's residence in London, Mr. Naruhodo!
Order, court, I demand immediate silence! Her Majesty the Queen! You can't be! I mean, no! This is some sort of unforgivably distasteful trickery by a third-rate detective, that's all. Unforgivably distasteful trickery? What an apt description! A closed court session attended by elite members of the judiciary is a rare event. I presume that Her Majesty would be no more than a little curious about the proceedings. So, I decided to show her everything, from start to finish. Huh? You showed her?
Indeed, I invented live streaming just so I could broadcast this court case to the Queen before the turn of the 1900s. By dint of the Herlock-Sholmes remote cinematograph. You meddling kids!
Oh my goodness.
This is some sort of nightmare. Just as I appear to be standing before you, regaling you with talk of my latest invention. No doubt you've inferred that the reverse is also true. You don't mean... Her Majesty has seen and heard every moment of the proceedings. I assume there would be no objection. And after all, every trial in this country is conducted under the auspices of Her Majesty, as you know. I confess I'm quite impatient to hear Her Majesty's opinion about the unforgivably distasteful trickery in which you've been engaged over the past 10 years. No, I was merely...
Oh, so sorry to keep you all waiting. Vicky and I had so much to talk about.
Just out here giving nicknames to the Queen. Iris, please don't ever change.
Iris, there you are. In fact, I have a little message here from Her Majesty.
A message? Well then, if everyone is sitting comfortably, forthwith and with immediate effect, all authority previously afforded to male Strongheart is hereby revoked for evermore. Furthermore, he will be prosecuted for crimes against his country in a public trial by jury in the coming days. So, it seems that Her Majesty doesn't believe we need to fight fire with fire. Justice in this country needn't be administered from the shadows at all.
Male Strongheart, the darkness you fostered to conceal your despicable actions these last 10 years is a thing of the past now. After today, your brand of law and order has no future, because no longer are you the Lord Chief Justice. In the eyes of the law and of Her Majesty the Queen, you are nothing but a criminal! A jaunt! I'm not doing that over and over. Court is adjourned! Sorry. Oh, it broke. There we go. Ooh. You guys like my scream? Top tier voice actor. I feel like I did a really good job this episode, though, except for the fact that I couldn't pronounce some words. And sometimes I would start off in the wrong voice. I feel like I carried the emotions well. That's it, right? Get burnt! Literally. Lord Clint Van Zeeks left a will in which he confessed to everything. When those words came out of Asogi's mouth, it deranged me completely. I knew I must do anything and everything in my power to contain the situation. But I couldn't find the damn document. I searched his cell, but it wasn't there. Which precipitated the jailbreak plot, I presume? What do you mean? The need to obtain that will was all-consuming. And I was sure that if I facilitated Asogi's escape, he would emerge with the will somewhere in his person. But despite searching his limp body in the cemetery that night, it still eluded me. It never even crossed my mind that it was concealed in the sword's hilt. What pains me now is that my brother left this world without a word to me. And I'm sorry, Lord Van Zeeks.
In point of fact, I think perhaps that isn't the case.
Sorry? How can that be?
There is more to his last will and testament.
What? As I confront the prospect of my demise, I feel bitter regret for my younger brother. Barak, you've always looked up to me, and now you follow in my footsteps to become a prosecutor. It is my fervent wish that my unspeakable deed should not hinder your advancement. I ask not for understanding, for none could understand my depravity. I only ask for forgiveness.
Isugi is a fine detective and a hunter worthy of respect. He has agreed to honor my final two wishes. The first is that this document survives. The second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed to my sins to my wife. May she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I rest my quill. Clint Van Zeeks.
Clint. Male Strongheart, you colluded with Seishiro Jigoku in a criminal plot so immense it spanned the oceans. And you cold-heartedly murdered all those who knew the truth about what happened 10 years ago. But why did you set about that now, a whole decade later? To ascend to the very peak. These last 10 years made me realize being the Lord Chief Justice wasn't enough. Short of becoming Her Majesty's Attorney General, I could have no real power to effect changes needed in this country. And for that promotion, I needed to ensure no remnants of the past remained. How could you? I like everything to run smoothly, in the exact manner that I prescribe, like a well-oiled machine. And I was just a step away. And for your ambition to succeed, did you even bother to count the number of brilliant people you had killed?
Nah, Mr. Reaper, are you not forgetting something?
Such as?
You very much adopted your usual prosecutor-like demeanor in the proceedings now. But the reality of the situation is that you are the defendant in this trial.
Nah.
However, the presiding judge would appear to have fallen from the bench, as it were. Literally. May I suggest, therefore, that we entrust the final adjudication to an old friend?
My lord.
As a member of the judiciary, I have been following the proceedings from the gallery, and I must say, I shan't ever forget the extraordinary battle between good and evil that I witnessed here today. The darkness that has blighted the justice in our land these past 10 years has at last been dispelled, thanks, in no small part, to the efforts of a bright young star from the east. Defense Counsel Naruhodo.
Yes, my lord.
On behalf of everyone here present in the Old Bailey, I give you my heartfelt thanks.
You're too kind, my lord. The first time I faced you in court, just under a year ago now, I had the faintest of intimations that if British justice, so warped and twisted over its long history, was finally to know change, this might just be the man to do it. What? But at the time, I wouldn't allow myself to acknowledge the possibility. I couldn't overcome my hatred of the Japanese after the circumstances of my brother's death. Mr. Naruhodo, allow me to apologize for countless discourtesies on my part. Your lawyer of boundless talent.
Oh, Lord Van Zeeks!
When I first arrived in Great Britain, I was literally a nobody. Certainly not a lawyer. And the truth is, my fortunes have entirely been made by the miraculous people I've met. My best friend, Cosmo Sogi, who led me here to Britain in the first place. My loyal and ever-patient judicial assistant, Mrs. Sato, who helped me study to become a lawyer. The brilliant Lord Van Zeeks, who never failed to challenge his Nipponese rival. And not to mention, the exceptional master of logic and reasoning, who showed me the true art of deduction, Mr. Sholmes.
Saving the best for last, Mr. Naruhodo! What a relief!
I'm well aware that without all these people's help and support, I wouldn't be where I am today. The truth is a guiding light that always leads to happiness. And I've lived by that principle for a long time now. But actually, it's not true. And the truth can also cause great pain. Sometimes even leave people on the brink of despair.
And for that reason, there are those who feel the need to hide the truth, who do it instinctively even.
But as soon as we allow our eyes to settle on something other than the truth, the darkness takes hold. And from there it grows, until eventually it makes us blind to the guiding light of the truth altogether. So that's why it's my belief that we must all resolve to never avert our eyes from what is just and true. So that we can continue to walk the straight and narrow path ahead.
Well, I must excuse myself now! But before I go, Mr. Naruhodo, let me compliment you on your grand opus.
What?
Without your beautifully composed case against Lord Strongheart, Her Majesty would have been unable to act. Thanks to you and your fellows, the haunting undertones of corrupting British justice system have been silenced.
Thank you very much.
So, until our paths cross somewhere again.
Well then, it would appear that this long trial has finally come to an end.
My apologies for any anxiety caused, my lord.
I'm quite sure we shall meet again here in the courtroom before long, Prosecutor Baroque Van Zeeks. In conclusion of these proceedings, I hereby declare the defendant, Baroque Van Zeeks.
Give me the confetti in the broken courtroom. Good, they kept this off. I was like, are they gonna make sure that it's gone? They did. Good, good.
That is all. Court is adjourned.
They couldn't even give us the funny number for Noogie. Be like, sorry, Noogie. Strongheart was evil all along. Let's make it 4:20 p.m. But nope, 4:21 p.m. in the defendant's antechamber at the Old Bailey. It's really is all over. But did I sacrifice too much?
Mr. Naruhodo! I really must congratulate you! It was a truly splendid performance! Honestly, I couldn't be happier for you!
Oh, thank you very much. But I really couldn't have done it without you at my side through it all, Mrs. Sato.
Oh! Your kind words mean so much to me!
It really was a very splendid show, that's Naruhodo. I'd have thought you'd be smiling from ear to ear, but you look rather glum. Well, of course I'm delighted about the verdict, but in exposing the truth, I'm afraid I've caused my client a great deal of pain. I'm really not sure that's what a lawyer ought to be doing.
Oh well, in that case, I'm quite sure that when you see Lord Van Zeeks' smiling face, everything will seem better.
Smile! Smile! Capcom! Come on, you cowards! Give us a smiling Van Zeeks! Give it to us! Mrs. Sato? And everything seems worse. He has a face like thunder.
Oh dear! I really shouldn't have presumed.
Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes?
Almost a year it's been now, since I first encountered you here in this very courthouse. For you to have risen to the level of excellency you have demonstrated today, well, it's quite remarkable.
But I exposed the most unpalatable truth you could have ever imagined in court today. I feel as though I've robbed you of something you held so dear.
What was it he said? To fight those who dwell in the darkness requires at least some of us to occupy the darkness ourselves. But that was just the feeble excuse of a coward. Only those with a steadfast eye for the truth have what it takes to fight the dark forces of crime. You made fine work of establishing that fact in court today.
Oh. Well, thank you.
What magnanimous words! I'm quite sure that Kazuma-sama would have a smile on his face at this very moment if he were here!
Kazuma? Oh, he's smiling too, right, Susato? Everyone's angry. Miss Susato! There's another face like thunder here!
Oh my! And he really was here!
Lord Van Zeeks, allow me to congratulate you on your acquittal.
Congratulate me? Or curse me? You failed to bring down the Reaper.
I owe you an apology.
No, it is I who should apologize. Your father, Genshin. If I had been stronger, then perhaps I made an unforgivable error of judgment. I can offer no excuse.
And I can offer no forgiveness. That said, I suppose you fought for justice and the truth. For that, at least, I can't withhold respect. Your words mean more to me than you can know. I will hold them dear.
Kazuma-sama!
I must say, there's one thing that's still bothering me.
What's that?
The will that Lord Clint Van Zeeks wrote before his duel with my father. Sogi is a fine detective and a hunter worthy of respect. He has agreed to honor my final two wishes. The first is that this document survives. The second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed my sins to my wife. May she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I rest my quill. Clint Van Zeeks. What can the second of his final wishes have been? That your father agreed to honor, you mean?
I think perhaps I should tell you that, okay. I was gonna say, I think Iris is actually Clint's daughter. I might be able to shed some light on that. What? Father! It was 10 years ago, as you know. The day before the execution was scheduled. And I went to the prison to say my farewells to Genshin. Why aren't you putting up more of a fight, Genshin? If you'd only agreed to it, Seishiro and I would gladly petition the government.
We've been through this already. You don't need to worry about me. Anyway, Eugene, I have a favor to ask of you. Something of great importance.
You're one of my greatest friends, Genshin. Whatever it is, consider it done.
I'm going to tell you an address. I need you to go there at once, in secret and telling no one. You should find a lady of the gentry in there and hiding there.
The lady of the gentry?
She's not in a good way,
and she's with child. The birth is imminent. As a medical man, I'd like you to attend to her. Please, you're her only hope.
By any chance, is the child yours, Genshin?
Don't be daft. It's a favor that was asked of me by a man I knew, as his dying wish.
My goodness!
I swore to the man that I would help, that I would do whatever I could for his wife and his unborn child. But if something should happen to me, I need to ask you that same favor. You're the only person I know that I can truly rely on.
What did you say? If something should happen to you? Tomorrow night, you're going to be...
You never know, though, do you? What life will bring.
All right, then. Tell me the address. And I'll head there at once. With Seishiro and...
No, not with him.
Pardon?
This is a favor I'm asking of you, and only you, Eugene.
Right, I see. Very well, then. That very night, I caught a train from Paddington to Dartmoor in Devon. And I found the old house. In the middle of nowhere it was. An old hunting hound lay asleep in the grounds. And the poor woman was on the floor at the back of a darkened room. She was in mortal danger. I broke her waters to precipitate the labor before she weakened further, but it was a tortuous birth. And I did everything humanly possible for her and her child. And in the end, I was lucky enough to welcome a new life into the world. But tragically, my efforts to save the mother's life were in vain. And I held the healthy newborn girl in my arms and wept for longer than I care to remember. And eventually, in something of a daze, I looked around the room. There was precious little in it, but an old travel trunk caught my eye. It had clearly been well looked after over the years, made of top-quality leather with fine stitching. But it was when I saw the emblem on the side of it that everything dropped into place. B for Baskerville.
Baskerville?
You mean the woman was the wife of Lord Clint Van Zeeks? That's right. The newborn was his daughter.
What? But that makes no sense. Why on earth wouldn't Clint have entrusted the child to my care in that case? I was completely unaware that he even had a daughter.
I suppose he didn't really have any choice.
What?
Well, your mother said that he'd confessed everything to his wife, so she must have been beside herself with worry for her child. If the true identity of the professor were ever to be made public, the girl would be forever branded as the daughter of the infamous mass murderer.
Nah. So the only solution was to distance the young girl from the Van Zeeks family as much as possible. I don't believe it.
I imagine that in his final hour, Lord Clint Van Zeeks made the obvious choice. He would have thought to himself, this Japanese man is here is someone I can trust. I honored my promise to Genshin, of course. However, only a month later, I was summoned back to Japan, and without disclosing the parentage of the child, I couldn't obtain permission to take her with me.
Oh, how awful!
I was completely at a loss. In the end, I had to ask my great friend. I asked him if he would be a father to her.
That being Mr. Sholmes, I presume?
Yes. He took one look into my eyes and agreed to it on the spot.
Mr. Sholmes, he has a heart of gold.
Really, and all of it can be said that I did for the child was to give her a name.
Oh?
When I'd come back to Britain, I was trying to escape from the grief of losing my darling wife. So it was her name that I gave the little girl.
Your wife's name, Professor Mikotoba. In other words...
The name of my mother! Ayame Mikotoba! Oh!
Oh!
That's right. Ayame. Or in English, Iris.
Iris?
I had no idea.
Ouch!
Mr. Naruhodo, what's wrong?
This little thing just pinched me through my trouser pocket hard.
My dear fellows, can you hear me?
Mr. Sholmes, is that you? Ouch! Yes, we can hear you.
You see what excessive tugging can do? Let that be a lesson to you.
Mr. Sholmes, we weren't able to thank you properly before, but you were simply marvelous. Your checkmate move was a stroke of genius.
Indeed it was, wasn't it? I surpassed myself, I feel. It had become apparent to me that to stop the Lord Chief Injustice would require such measures.
Rudo, Susie! Oh, Iris! Oh, I'm so pleased. What a wonderful outcome. Her Majesty Queen Vicky said she thought my special blend was delicious. Oh, I'm sure she did. After all, no one brews a more delicious tea than you do, Iris. Let's have a party to celebrate. And Mr. Reaper, you simply must come too.
What? I'm afraid I couldn't.
The Reaper of the Bailey, flustered by a 10-year-old girl, again. No, really? Oh, poo.
Mott, I give you my word. That I shall present myself at your residence in the near future to express my gratitude.
Oh, how lovely.
You promise now I won't let you forget. Bye for now, then. All right, Iris. Thank you for all your help earlier. Oh, that was nothing. Just come back home soon.
Now! My butt cheeks! One final pinch goodbye, was it? Well, I think I ought to be leaving. Lord Van Zeeks, would you care to accompany me? Certainly.
Look at them being bros.
Mr. Naruhodo, allow me once again to express my deep gratitude to you. And I believe you saved my life.
Wait, Lord Van Zeeks!
Yes.
What are you intending to do now?
Well, clearly, I shall have to resign from the prosecutor's office.
Oh no!
I intend to publicize the full truth about the Professor case. Once that's done, the Van Zeeks family will be ostracized completely from London society.
Surely not!
So as soon as I am free from my employment, I shall leave the capital.
Oh, I see. Don't be a fool.
Don't be a fool. Are those the actions of a man once feared as the mighty Reaper of the Bailey? And I beg your pardon. Pardon is begged. For the past 10 years, you've endured that pseudonym and been cast as one of the dark forces yourself. Now that you've finally been freed from that disrepute, your battle is just beginning, surely. Well, I certainly never expected to hear those words from your lips. And I waited a very long time to come to London. Now I'm properly here. I intend to learn all that I can. Anyway, goodbye for now. Rinosuke Naruhodo.
Kazuma Sogi. And it seems as though he's really matured suddenly.
He's not the only one who's matured, Mr. Naruhodo! Well, I think we should make our way back to Baker Street. We must help Iris with tonight's dinner.
We must. It was then that I came to an important decision about my future. Alright, 6:25. I'm home. Ah!
About time you got here. We've been waiting ages, Odo. What are you doing with that colorful piece of history? It's a party, isn't it? Gotta go with off the bang. I mean, fireworks are daily. But when you ain't got fire, smoke's the next best thing, ain't it? And there's a girl on Fresno Street who could help you with that, I think. Right. I'll remember that. You don't have to reload that thing every time I speak.
You really must hear this. It's quite the most extraordinary thing. And I assure you, it will defy your expectations. Take down every detail now, Mikotoba.
Nah, the world-famous great detective, regaling his partner with the tale of his adventure. A sight to behold.
Would you care to hazard a guess? Where do you suppose the fiendish runaway had concealed himself? Would you believe? Inside the trunk I found abandoned in his cabin.
Oh my goodness, he was there. It was there. Charles Mikotoba was with you.
I would believe it, yes.
I say, Mikotoba, I detect not a hint of surprise.
I wonder why that is. Maybe because I was there at the scene as well, Sholmes.
What? You were? Then why the deuce didn't you say so before?
Not quite the sight I was expecting to behold, but still. It's hard not to feel privileged to see it. Hello, Mr. Sholmes, Professor Mikotoba. Finally back from the Bailey.
Not a moment too soon. A feast prepared by Iris and Miss Susato awaits.
I must say, I haven't seen Susato looking so happy in a very long time.
Ah, Runo, there you are.
Dinner's on the table, everyone. Please do come back and take a seat.
Time to fill my boots.
Goodness, is that really true, Gina?
Yeah, I'm losing me copper's clobber and going back to what I know best. It's a diver's life for me. You're really leaving the police force? But why, Ginny? Well, the boss ain't around no more, so... Oh. And anyway, no matter how hard I try, that Reaper ain't never gonna accept a diver turned... What? Is he? Oh, detective. Oh, okay. Well, people can change, you know.
Ah, yes, that reminds me. I rather thoughtfully offered to relieve the bailiff of this now defunct piece of evidence.
Eh? It's the inspector's pocket watch, and the crown has been reattached.
That watch was his pride and joy, a symbol of his great achievements in Scotland Yard. For 10 years without fail, he had measured every second of the man's remarkable career.
But now it's stopped.
Someone needs to keep the memory of Inspector Gregson's career alive by taking on the great responsibility of winding that watch every single day again.
Yes, someone with an equally fierce detective spirit.
It's gotta be me. There ain't no one else.
Quite right.
I mean, after all, the boss was... Well, he was my boss.
Yes, Ginny, he was.
Oh yeah? And I made you a promise and all, didn't I, Iris? That I'd become a proper detective one day and track down your old man. Oh! Alright then, it's decided, I'll do it. And I swear, I'll find your dad and bring him kicking and screaming.
I'm not entirely sure that would be appropriate.
Yes, I think, Gina, it might be best to, well... I think I'd like you to forget that promise, Ginny. Eh? Iris? Well, obviously, I've always wondered about who my real daddy is. Of course I have. I wanted to know where I've come from. I thought it might tell me something about myself. But I've caused such a lot of trouble trying to find out for so many people. Hurley, Runo, Professor Mickey. No, not at all, my dear. Really, you owe no apology to anyone. Well, anyway, I've decided to give up on it because I finally realized
My daddy is the greatest in the world. I don't think it matters what his name is or where he's from. Don't you agree, Hurley?
Aww.
With every word, Iris.
Thank you, Hurley. Thank you, Daddy.
I think Mikotaba.
Yes, Holmes.
I think that I ought to express my gratitude to you.
Oh,
For 6 years, you and I solved many a mystery together. And during that time, I remembered countless expressions of gratitude for our good services. But a moment ago, I heard the most pleasing expression of gratitude of them all. And I should never have experienced it. Were it not for you.
you old softy, Holmes. But I must confess, it's a weight off my mind to hear you say it.
Well then, I think this calls for a lengthy violin recital, wouldn't you say?
Oh, well, the food would go cold. That's the only problem. Maybe next week, Hurley.
Are you sure a week is long enough, Iris?
Sean's busting out the dad jokes. Even amidst of the most troubling of cases, even reeling from the most shocking of revelations. Returning in the evening to this suite of rooms, there's always warmth and happiness to be had. In the home of the world's greatest detective, and my home too, with my greatest family. All right, 9:37. This attic room has been my home and office for almost a year now. I've certainly had some unforgettable experiences whilst I've lived here. But I think now, the time has come. Time to bid this place farewell.
Naruhodo!
Oh, Naruhodo! Oh, Professor! Are you alone? I didn't hear any sound from Susato's room. Yeah, Susato-san went out after dinner. She took a carriage. Something about an important matter she needed to take care of. Ah, I see. I wanted to thank you for what you did earlier. Oh? With Iris, I mean, when the subject of her father came up. Lord Clint Van Zeeks. And I made up my mind many years ago never to tell her who her real father was. And it's what I was agreed with Genshin after all. Lord Clint Van Zeek's final wishes before he died, you mean? Yes, I've had to take some rather drastic steps at times to protect that secret, you know? Calling Susato back to Japan 6 months ago, for example. That's why. When I read Soseki-san's report about his final days in London, my heart nearly stopped. You'd stumbled across the crux of that terrible case. The dog's collar. The description of the Baskervilles insignia left me in no doubt. Baskerville? If you'd decided to investigate that insignia, sooner or later you'd have made the connection to the Van Zeeks. And to make matters worse, Susato knew of the unpublished story as well. The story that Iris had written based on my notes from the time. Oh yes, the Hound of the Baskervilles. Exactly. It was a work of fiction, but based on the grim reality of a huge beast of a dog being used as a murder weapon. A dog with the Baskerville family emblem around its neck. Armed with those two clues, I feared that you and Susato might arrive at the truth. So I invented that story about having collapsed to justify her leaving London and returning to Japan at once. All in aid of halting any investigations you and she might have been contemplating. I see. Something I've never understood is why Susato-san came across that manuscript in Japan, though. You know, Iris' The Hound of the Baskervilles story, I mean. Sholmes sent it to me.
That was before Susato left Japan. He was very troubled about what should be done about it, you see? And I'd read it and carelessly left it on my desk, which is where Susato came across it, of course. Ah. It was the only case Sholmes and I ever pursued that I didn't record in meticulous detail. I was stunned when I discovered that young Iris had pieced together so much of it from my paltry notes. Sholmes and I discussed the matter and decided that we couldn't allow the story's publication. At that point, I returned the manuscript by post to Sholmes for safekeeping.
So you did all that just to stop Iris from finding out the truth about her father.
That's right, because Sholmes had told me how astute she'd become. However, having witnessed events in court today, I must say my opinion has somewhat shifted.
Oh?
And I think at some point in the future, the time will come for Iris to know the truth. And when it does, well, I believe it will be for the best.
I think so too. Actually, Professor, I wanted to talk to you about something too.
Judging from that expression, I'd say you've come to a decision, have you?
Yes, I have. I will be returning with you to Japan.
Are you quite sure?
I'm really only here as a substitute for Kazuma. But he's here in Britain now and as originally intended. Locum student Naruhodo doesn't really have a right to stay, I think.
I see.
Looking back now, when I first arrived here in February, my becoming a lawyer just seemed to be the way things turned out. With Kazuma, Susato-san, and Mr. Sholmes all gently pushing me in that direction. I spent the best part of a year immersed in this world, but always aware of a seed of doubt inside me. Until today. Standing in that courtroom earlier, all doubts vanished from my mind. I was totally focused. I was sure of my belief in my client, and I was sure I could see the trial through. And at the end of it, I finally realized no one else chose this path for me. I chose it myself.
The path of a defense lawyer, eh?
Yes, that's what I am now. That's what I'll be going back with you to Japan as. And that's the path I'll be following for the rest of my life.
Wow, it sounds like you've made quite a resolution there.
I have.
Very well then. I must say, it's extremely welcome news. I shall make arrangements for your return first thing tomorrow, but I don't imagine we'll depart for a few days.
Not with the symposium having been canceled now. Such a shame.
Never mind. I'm sure there'll be other opportunities in the future. Well, then, I'll bid you good night.
Susato-san!
I just wanted to let you know I'm back.
Did you, hear what your father and I were discussing?
I'm sorry, I did, yes. I couldn't help but...
Oh, how much did you hear?
Well, from the part about Iris's real father, I think.
In other words, from the beginning.
So you've made up your minds? You'll return to Japan and continue working as a defense lawyer?
Ah, yes. I'm sorry. Really should have consulted you about it. I did want to earlier this evening, actually, but you'd already gone out.
Oh no, that's quite alright. I already knew that it's what you decide, not Oda-san.
You did? Susato-san.
Ah, yes.
I suppose this means it has to be farewell soon.
I suppose.
You'll be a great help to Kazuma going forward. I mean, I know he's a brilliant lawyer, but he's new to the British courtroom. He'll certainly benefit greatly from having a brilliant judicial assistant at his side.
I'll do my very best.
I wish I could say it, but I just can't. I can't ask her to come with me. After all, she was always supposed to be coming to Britain as Kazuma's assistant.
It's growing late. We should both try and get some sleep. I'm sure you must be exhausted after today.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Before I retire, let me just say one more time. You really were quite splendid in court today. So if you ask me, anyone who thinks of you as a substitute or a locum should be ashamed of themselves.
Susato-san. Thank you. No. Alright, so a few days later, it's the 7th of November at 5:42 a.m., Port of Dover Quayside. So instead of us sending off Susato, we're sending off ourselves, I see. I can't believe this day's finally come. You're really leaving then, Runo? I'm afraid so, Iris. Thank you so much for everything. I don't know what I'll do without your wonderful cooking and delicious tea.
Oh, I wish you weren't going. But you have to come back and visit, say you will.
Of course. I promise. Well, it was a very brief reunion, but it was a pleasure to pursue a case with you again after so long. For a while, at least, it felt like old times. And then my other old friend turned out to be a giant douchebag. It was very unsettling.
Yes, I suppose on reflection, there's something to be said for it. Having a little fun once in a while.
I'll just go ahead and say goodbye to the professor as well, I think.
All right, Iris, you do that. Yeah, we didn't need that subtitle, but okay.
Susato-san.
Oh, it's because it's voice subs. Okay, I guess I got stopped now.
I've just checked, Naruhodo-san. Your luggage is already on board. Such a beautiful morning. Perfect for embarking on a journey, isn't it?
Before I set off, I'd just like to say how thankful I am for everything you've done for me. And give my warmest regards to Kazuma, please.
Actually, I think you ought to give him your regards in person, don't you?
Sorry?
Ryunosuke.
Kazuma! What are you doing here?
Do you really think I'd miss my best friend's departure?
Thanks.
Yay, we're still friends. Woo!
To be honest, I'd been looking forward to our wild time tearing up the streets of Her Majesty's capital. But,
Well, we'll have to save that for another time. Personally, I'm looking forward to facing you in court again.
Me too. But, we're both defense lawyers, so,
I'm going to become a prosecutor. I'll stay in Lord Van Zeek's tutelage for the time being, but before long, I intend to be just as formidable as the Reaper himself.
Oh, I see.
This feels oddly awkward.
Actually, Ryunosuke, I have a favor to ask.
Name it.
I'd like you to take care of this for me for a while.
Karuma? Why?
Because I've seen it now. I've seen what's inside me, the demon that reared its ugly head that day. It was only for the briefest of moments. The last time I came face to face with that inspector. But it was unmistakable. I wanted to kill him. I've always known there are demons that live inside people. And now I know there is one in me. The fact that it very nearly consumed me is something I'll carry with me until the end of my days. While I devote my life to fighting those whose demons have got the better of them. As a prosecutor.
So, that's what you've resolved to do, is it?
He brings a good point. Because even when you're overwhelmed and stuff, you still make that choice. And he chose not to kill Gregson. It was close! It was close. But he chose not to do it. So those that succumb to it is who he's going to be chasing down. Because he knows what it's like. But that doesn't make it excusable just because you decided to do it. Interesting.
Until I'm ready to face the demon within me. To slay it once and for all. I leave this in your care. If you'll take it.
Of course I will. I'll keep it by my side. Always. Until we meet again, then. You have your path to follow, and I have mine.
Naruhodo-san? The path you're going to follow from now on. I wonder if I might follow it at your side, and unless I'd be a burden.
What? I mean, I would very much like you to come with me. But aren't you...
You're so predictable, Ryunosuke.
I am?
Honestly, you never change at all. But that's what I like about you.
You mean you knew about this?
It was the evening after Lord Van Zeek's trial came to an end. She came to see me at the prosecutor's office.
Really? Or when I had that conversation with Professor Mikotoba?
So, you'd go with Ryunosuke back to Japan?
Yes. I know it's unfair of me to follow my own interests like this.
Coming here especially to tell me. You're a stickler for etiquette, aren't you? Well, what are his feelings?
We've never discussed it, of course, and Naruhodo-san has made no such suggestion. I worry that perhaps I'd be a burden to him.
He's just as much of a stickler for etiquette as you are. He'd never say anything before he was asked. But I'd feel happy knowing you were with him. Look out for him on my behalf, will you?
Of course.
Susato-san.
What do you think, Naruhodo-san?
With you by my side, no trial would seem too daunting. So if you're willing, I'd be honored if you'd come with me. Together we can take on the world.
I'm terribly incompetent, but if you'll have me, I'd be delighted.
Oh, no, not at all. If anyone's terribly incompetent, it's me.
Well, let me turn my head while I hold the sword. That's what it means, right? Yeah, you need the help. You need the help.
Ah! What's wrong?
Your luggage, Susato-san. There's no time! The ship's going to set sail any minute now!
It's alright, there's no need to worry. As it happens, my luggage is already on board too.
It is?
Your fine judicial assistant has everything in hand as always, I see.
Bruno! Your ship's about to leave!
Time to go then. Look after yourself, Runosuke.
Cosmo, draw your sword. One day, when our paths cross, once more, we'll fight a duel of words across the courtroom. A day I eagerly await as a lawyer.
I've been waiting to hear you say that, partner.
Don't forget me then, Kazuma.
As if I could, Ryunosuke.
And Mr. Sholmes, thank you so much. I'm very much indebted to you.
Indeed, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe you are.
I'll never forget all you've done for me during my time in London.
Quite. I should like to think you will remember your debt of gratitude. Especially when I visit you in your country. What? The truth is, although many are ignorant of the fact, the world is far smaller than most folk realize.
Well, I'd be delighted if you came to Japan one day.
Oh yes! We'd welcome you with open arms, Mr. Sholmes.
Oh, that sounds wonderful! I can't wait!
In that case, let us conclude that this is to be merely a brief parting, my dear fellows.
And that brings us to the end of my adventures in Great Britain. A peculiar twist of fate brought me halfway around the world those many months ago. But that was just the start of my journey. Who knows where fate will lead me next? Still, I'm confident this won't be my last meeting with the friends I've made in London. And when we're together again, no doubt the first words I'll hear will be,
Come, the game is afoot.
The ship, with our friends from the east, sailed steadily towards the distant horizon. But Sholmes' face was alight with joy. The times may change, but a steadfast friendship will remain true, Wilson. We have but to gently close our eyes, and we are with our companions once more.
So I do just that. And when I do, I can hear his strong, familiar voice ring out.
Objection!
Until we meet again, Bruno.
Yeah, in the old DS games, you used to be able to press a button and scream into the mic of the DS, and that's how you had to finish off the games. You had to scream objection into the end of the game. So I guess there's no feature for that on Switch, or maybe it's just because I'm playing, of course, on the PC. But I can't help but have that. Put a smile on my face when that happens.
And I've been thoroughly inundated with inquiries about my remote cinematograph.
I can't read this fast. Well, I can't Kermit this fast. I can read this fast.
Anyway, I've decided an absence from London is in order. A sojourn into distant climes. The Empire of Japan, perhaps. And I understand that wardrobe class incurs no charge whatsoever.
Oh my goodness. Sholmes, you can't take up the role of Iris's new dad and then be like, let's go, Iris, and hide in the luggage for 60 days.
I gave a little note to Hurley the other day. It just said, "Thank you for everything, Daddy." Aww. But it made Hurley cry.
Oh, he gave him red hair dye safely. Oh my god.
They said that might make him cry too, so he'd rather not use it.
The real treasure is the dads we found along the way. Oh, he got rid of his little Warhammer set. Oh, that's why he retired. He felt too pressured. Vanquish the darkness. Toby, the great Chief Inspector Toby. Aww. Well, Gregson left a note. That's exactly what me and Chief Inspector Toby are gonna keep trying to do. Something like that. I only wish I could have said how grateful I was before he, before he died. I'm glad Toby is still Chief Inspector Toby. Hey, Chief Inspector Toby. I'm glad we did get to see Gina. I was worried we wouldn't see Gina this episode.
Jaina, the truth is, I'm not the upstanding fellow you think I am. You might be a diver at heart, but it's a good heart. You reminded me I need to be true to myself. I've got one more job to take care of before it's ta-ta to London town for the foreseeable. And then, I've got to complete your education in the art of deduction, a la Gregson, as they say.
Oh, so that was the note, I suppose. Oh. He knew it was risky. Oh, goodness.
Your Excellency! This man is accused of illegal entry!
Oh, Hosanaga's getting... Ha! Nice! He's got so many cats! Nah, Hosanaga, it's fine. You just need Natsume and Rei. Just going for it. With all his cats.
Mama!
Let's talk about sushi. Oh my goodness, she was offering to be like,
Hey, Mama, can I cut you open?
oh. That's a big butcher's knife.
Here I am again in Great Britain on the invitation of my dear old university friend. He sent me a very nice letter saying he'd like to show me around now that everything was settled. But what have I done? I was so excited I picked a splendid hotel and now I can't afford the bill. Oh, Barok, come to my rescue again, please. I wish I could just vanish into thin air sometimes.
Aw, cute. They're being all buddies again. Aw.
When I went to make the waxwork impression of the killer in the cemetery, I realized what had happened. But even in the witness stand of the highest court in the land, I could never speak of it. The Lord Chief Justice and I had struck a bargain, you see. For a faithful reproduction of the visage, there is nothing we Tuspels would not do.
See, it's weird when you think about what she's up to versus what Dr. Gory is up to. I mean, they're both manhandling dead bodies. Or just one is significantly creepier than the other. Everyone calls me gossip, and I saw jaunty little tidbits to passers-by, you know.
Hey, everyone calls me a pepino. I sold all the spaghetti. It's more red than my red.
Yeah, for the ones they called me. No, I cannot do it. This is ridiculous.
Hey, Capo! Oh, Daly, how charming. You've made lots of new friends in here, I see.
Yes, and when we're released, we're all gonna strike it rich together. Oh my goodness. He got bamboozled into scams. He's so extra and so normal at the same time. I don't know what to make of it. Hey, Capo! I never thought I'd do that voice again, but I guess I should have expected it.
When I was accepted on the foreign study tour, I knew exactly what path I had to take. And however it might have happened, I knew that I wanted you there to see it. And if I'd ended up in the dock, there's no one I would have rather had defending me. But now, thanks to you, there's a new path I want to take. I'm sure we'll meet again in the courtroom, my friend. Until then, I leave Karama in your care.
I wanted to do a Russian voice, but it's just Susato.
I've made some tea, Naruhodo-san. It's important that you rest while you can. Once we arrive in Japan, you shall be busy establishing your new office. I'm so delighted to be accompanying you. After all, your talents have been recognized by a great detective. Because you really are the greatest of lawyers. A great ace attorney, some might say.
There it is. Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! Aww. Hey, you finally took care of the Daruma doll. We got it all set up. That's a cute picture. Oh, the Wagahai! That's true. Mr. Natsume needed new cats because Wagahai couldn't cross the border. I love Wagahai, man. I love Wagahai a little too much. I want Wagahai merch. Are we gonna do the walkthrough? We are. Alright, so I don't think there's anything particularly to talk about on screen at the moment, so I'll just go ahead and wrap things up while we watch that. Hey, it's Ryutaro! I don't recognize any of these voice actors. Look at the cats. Yeah, I don't recognize any of these names. Okay, anyways. Oh my god, he still has the shakes. The poor turtle's neck is flopped around. Someone stabilize that turtle's neck on top of Hosanaga's head. Oh, but man. Like I mentioned earlier, probably what, like 2 hours ago, because this is nearly a 4-hour episode, jeez. But they did have me for a little bit. So I was like, oh, Lord Strongheart wasn't actually the professor, like I was initially thinking that he was on behind all of it. He was just the Reaper. But yeah, there's no way stuff falls into place 100% without it being that way, so. They did have me for a little bit there. I was embarrassed. I was just not going to mention it. I was just not going to mention it because I was like, maybe Lord Strongheart wasn't like the super evil, but he was.
Wagahai! Wagahai!
Wagahai, are you going to join us? You're technically Iris's cat now. Wagahai, join us. Enoch Drebber was also super cool. Like a super cool character. These two? Bottom tier character. Oh, stop crying, Demon Zoro child. Nobody cares. I'm so happy that, Wagahai joined us. Dr. Scythe has Kingdom Hearts boss theme music. Dr. Hairbrain is awesome. Van Zeeks is awesome. Dr. Gory's pretty cool. I still like Shelms. Somebody give Beppo a coat. Ugh. Gossip has a really weird body structure. I still want to see the pay-per-view fight of that chick versus Gina. Those two are cute together. Governor Kaiden is an A-grade a-hole. Dude jumped out of a window out of distress, and you're like, yep, that's fine. Hey, Capo! I can't believe that's a 25-year-old man. He's shorter than Iris! Well, I can't pick on him, that's not... Oh, Sholmes left! Why did Sholmes leave? Hey, Chief Inspector Toby, is Toby gonna fight the cat? That Wagahai? That Waggy, as Iris calls it? Oh, it's because he's jamming out with, Susato's dad. Eugene. We got bamboozled. I would never have predicted laying my eyes on that Judge Jigoku, laying his eyes on him all the way back when, that he'd have this much involvement. I would never have thought it. And then Clint being the professor would never figure that one out. So they still got me. I'm glad. I was worried. I was like, did I big brain strong heart? But I feel like the hints were dropped along the way. And as some of you didn't agree with it, some of you did, so... Wagahai's all curled up. Oh, this is where they cross blades. I'm glad Cosma didn't kill Gregson. I'm glad that he was just very emotional and having a very rough time and didn't actually do anything particularly heinous. Just pretended to. So that was good. So we're back on the Cosmos cool train. But thank you, Capcom, for this. Now give us Ace Attorney 7, you cowards. What? I loved it. This is a really great experience. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I feel like there's so much that happened in this episode that it's just difficult to talk about, just because, like I said, nearly 4 hours here. I'm sure by the time it's all said and done, it'll be like solidly 4 hours. But it was. They did get me there. Twists and turns that I wasn't predicting, so. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to go ahead and hit that like button. Look at them back in court, just like they headed. Oh, I hope the escapades. That's true. I did mention, I think, at the start of either this episode or the one prior, because I'm filming this all at once. There are some, I think, little extra bonus somethings, little escapades. Maybe I can get to those in future Alley Plays whenever Alley Plays Thursdays returns. I don't know if I'm going to do it right away, you guys. This has been a lot of gameplay. I feel like I'm kind of gamed out. Well, that's a cool image. The Risen Resolve, something like that. Achievement unlocked, little silver. There's a bunch of achievements I don't have too, which I'm like, ugh. I'm not someone that likes to collect trophies, but also I'm like, come on, it can't be that hard to go back and get them all, right? But this is what the title screen looks like. And it's cool, it updates. It updates with whatever case you're playing on what's going on in the background. So of course, as we just set sail for Japan, it's back on the ship. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the episode, which I really hope you did, I don't know how many days it's gonna take you guys to get through it, because committing to sitting down for 4 hours is a lot. But once you guys wrap this on up, let me know your thoughts and everything. If you enjoyed it, which of course I really hope you did, make sure you hit that like button. And of course, not yet part of the Alley's Treasure Trove family, I'd love to have you join me. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Definitely, it has been a lot here. So, it's been a blast though. Big task undertaking this gameplay, but man, this has been a story I've been so glad to share with you all. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed it. I know there's gonna be people tuning into this, like, weeks after, but yeah, because I know some people are playing along, and a lot of people, like I said, it was a big undertaking having, usually about 2 hours every single day is a lot. Most people don't have 2 hours every day to just tune in, so. Whenever you guys finish it, let me know your thoughts on the game as a whole. What's been your favorite case? What has been the most unforeseen twist for you? For me? I would never have expected Clint to be the professor. That for me was a big one. Another one up there, I wouldn't have thought that Olive Green did it. I mean, I think I'd mention it at some point. Maybe Olive Green poisoned Shampir, but like, not seriously. I wouldn't have figured out how that would have happened. Let me know what some of your favorite characters have been. I really enjoyed Hosonaga, of course the main squad, Van Zeeks. Mr. Natsume, though, has been one of my favorites. He's great. I don't know why I'm obsessed with him, I just think he's great. I feel like I just relate to his constant state of anxiety. So he's been really cool. But let me know your thoughts on everything down below. It's been a blast. And of course, before I get on out of here, you guys know I'm bad about wrapping up videos. Let me just go ahead and take care of this now. Do have to give an extra special shout out to all of my patrons over on Patreon. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your above and beyond continued support. Do have 5 Ultimate Excavators, Jack Perez, Keith Muta, Mako, Mark Mardini, and Stephen Olivo, 2 Gemstone Miners, Andon and Stephen Bly, and 2 Crystal Collectors, John Michak and TJ Christensen. But thank you so much to all of my patrons, whether I say your name at the end of every video or not. So really do appreciate your above and beyond support, so thank you so much. With that, we can just jam out to this version of Pursuit here in the title screen, and I'll have to find a good place to cut it, which probably would have been right there, but I talked over it. But yes, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the conclusion of the gameplay series of Chronicles. Like I said, though, those escapades. Let me look. They're here somewhere. Special contents. Special contents I'll get to at some points. I'll get to these at some point, I'm sure, in the Alley Plays episodes. And yeah, that does it. Accolades. Let me see my trophies. They're rewarding all other accolades, all outfits. There's the shovels and spade ones. There's the ladder one. I didn't click on Iris's blackboard at some points. That's a mystery one with the Skulkins. Nash. Presenting the armband to Lord Van Zeeks in episode 3. I didn't present that. I didn't examine the violin, did Pillow Perfectionist, all this stuff, so. Noodler! But yeah, there's some bonus content. I'm sure I'll get through it at some point. But that will do it here for me this evening. This has been a lot of content today, so let me go ahead and sign off. My voice is dropping very quickly. So I really appreciate you watching. And when I come back next episode, I don't know what it'll be. I'm assuming it'll be a regular Thursday upload, just because this should be up on Tuesday. So back to normal schedule, which means should be an Alley Chat this Sunday. And then next week, I'm actually going to be out for a few days, but if I can pre-record some stuff for the Trove, I'll let you guys know. But it might be having an off week, just because I won't be here. I'll be out of town for several days. But yeah, that'll do it here. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hope you'll join me next time as we might unearth some more mysteries in those escapades, might unbox some cool treasures, but hope you guys join me next time as we figure things out here on Alley's Treasure Trove. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care, stay safe, and hope to catch you in the next episode.